What I didn't realize when we bought it was that any property that's more than 75 years old has to come before the commission, and I didn't know that.
Well,
But-
75, yeah, it's not, so our jurisdiction is if there's any work that's going to be done within 100 feet of a wetlands resource.
Oh, I'm in the wrong department then.
Yeah.
I think you're discussing a historical issue.
I am. All right, where do I need to be?
I don't know,
Help.
are they meeting tonight?
It's Tuesday night at 7
Okay,
o'clock, right?
you're just in another
Sorry.
room, that's all right. Good.
I actually signed off on your
Point you right
application.
We would have been tougher to you, you know what I mean? So-
I would have
That
said,
was
go
an
ahead,
easy
tear it
one.
down.
Yeah, we should have
We
just
might have
said
given,
yes.
yeah, we might have given her a, a
Oh,
good
man.
Yeah, you're all set.
Yeah, you're all set, the permit will be in the mail, yeah. Thanks. All right, well, again, let me start from the beginning again. This is the Chelmsford Conservation Commission Tuesday evening meeting. Is there anyone else from the public that has a conservation-related question or issue for us? All right, I don't see any, but good. So moving along. We move to our regulatory hearings. And this one we have is a request for determination of applicability. This was continued from a previous meeting on April 19th. The applicant is the town of Chelmsford, and this relates to 45 Adams Street, or also known as the Varney Playground. So if do we have an applicant, do we have a representative of the applicant, or Mr. Coons, are you going to just continue this?
Mr. Callahan was, due to a family matter, was not able to attend tonight. Brian is here, just in case we need him. But I guess the question is, does the commission still have any concerns pursuant to the site visit?
Well, this is a request for determination, so
Yes.
it's our decision, right? We vote that it can go ahead with it, or they have to file a notice of intent.
Correct. Correct.
I mean, based on what I saw, I think a notice of intent's necessary. It's a fairly substantial project. It goes right down to the water's edge.
Great.
Oh, Brian, do you have something to say at this point? Yeah.
Yeah, so for the record, Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates. Now, I think there's a little bit of a discrepancy in the limit of work because the jurisdiction of the commission doesn't actually fall within the entirety of the park. So if you look at kind of where the park is proper, which is the
By
rectangle.
park, you mean playground.
Playground.
You mean the kids' area. You don't
Varney-
mean the whole Varney playground.
Correct.
All right.
Varney Playground, Varney Park, if you will. So the green line represents the 100-foot buffer. So it's the tip of the park that's closest to the lake, and then grading down to what is the retaining wall. So the area that work is being proposed on is really manicured lawn north of the retaining wall, and then a small portion of the park itself. So we're not clearing trees within the buffer. We're not substantially changing any of the topography that's out there. We are correcting drainage issues, and those drainage issues kind of flow through the park from areas that are greater than 100 feet away. The point of discharge for the pipe and all of our stormwater practices are discharging greater than 100 feet from the lake as well. So it would be our contention that this does fall within kind of the scope of an RDA, given the limited amount of work that's within the buffer.
But even though the runoff is captured in the swales and the other areas, it all ends up in Freeman Lake, right?
So our intention is to have it infiltrate into the ground and not discharge into the lake at all.
Can you say unequivocally it won't go into Freeman Lake?
No. But those would be exceptionally rare events. So when it rains.
The history of runoff at Varney Playground is not rare.
Correct. And
Now,
that's
maybe
what
it's
we're
not this
addressing.
site, but we know the site next to it has had severe runoff issues over the years, right?
Mhm.
That's why I think a notice of intent, just to, I want to understand the magnitude of this work and what we may see as the next phase, well, I'll call it phase 3, which is the work between the children's playground and the building, right? There's going to be some work done there in the future?
Would be potentially a phase 2, correct. And what we would ask is that the
So
scope
even
of
if-
what's on the plan be included in the RDA, and then that phase 2. if
I mean,
the
you call it
commission felt that to
potential,
be-
but from my perspective, that work should be done before the playground's done.
It comes down to funding, right? So
Well,
what is shown on
I'm
the
not,
plan is
hey,
what's
I'm wearing a
funded.
conservation hat. I'm saying,
Cor-
from a conservation perspective, more work needs to be done for the runoff next to the brick building than building a new playground for kids.
Right, but the scope of the project, the scope of the RDA is the playground.
I mean,
so
you pick and choose, and the town picks and choose what they want to do first. I understand that. I'm just saying, from my perspective, there's a bigger problem next to the playground, from a conservation perspective, that's all.
Anything else, Dave, at this point?
No,
All right, moving right along. Bill?
I agree with Dave.
Okay. Anything else? No? Okay, Mark?
No, we have talked about that, and I think it should be done together as one project to address that. 'Cause it's right adjacent to it, the water is, correct? The water comes off that hill next to that fence, or,
So the primary source of water is going to be the ball fields, and that's where you see the majority of the erosion. The area that we were talking about
Right.
next to the
right, and I
bathhouse.
understand that it's
is-
outside of our jurisdiction.
Right,
But it inevitably ends up in our jurisdiction.
correct.
So I think it should be addressed at the same time. Or prior to the changing of the playground.
Okay, good. John, comments, questions?
No, I'll agree. I think it should all be done together, if possible. I mean,
Okay. David, from your conservation agent perspective?
I'd be okay with a negative determination of applicability. I think that, I mean, really, the only work really is grading in the buffer zone. It's more than 50 feet away. I think the plans show, with regard to the drainage, I think the plans show that it's actually going to be drained away from the lake. Do I understand that correctly,
Correct.
Brian? You know, just my opinion, I'd be okay with a negative determination.
All right, thanks, David. This is a public hearing, so does anyone from the public have any questions, comments for the applicant, or anything they want to say to the commission at this stage? This project, okay. All right, good. Yeah, I tend, personally, I think we could do a -3, but I do share the concern that my colleagues on the commission have about the drainage. I mean, we've seen over the years, all types of rapid water runoff in the beach area, affecting the quality of the water at Freeman Lake, and to the point where very often the beach has to get closed for water quality issues, and we've even seen just the surface itself. You see the little ravines created from that runoff on a regular basis. So it's certainly a legitimate concern.
Does anybody in this commission really think it's gonna be addressed after the playground's built?
I thought there was a time frame, wasn't there?
Well, certainly the plans for it can be addressed. Maybe the work won't get done right away. But the plans for it, to me, are important because as Mark said, I look at the work they want to do on the children's playground and the work next door as one, that's addressing all of Arnie Playground. So I'd like to understand how the two systems are going to work together. Have you done any borings on that site? How much below ground level in the children's playground is water level?
So we have not done soil testing as a part of
But you
this.
tell me that the water in the swale's not gonna go into the Freeman Lake.
So based on what is available for information on soils, we anticipate finding sand, and sand is very good for exfiltration. So we're anticipating water to go into the ground. The bottom line is the water flows from the ball field overland adjacent to the park and then into the beach. And that's kind of the erosion that you're seeing. And we're correcting that situation. We're redirecting it into a depression, a very large depression that's adjacent to the playground that will no longer discharge into the lake. in terms of additional work and additional erosion issues that are out there beyond the scope of the RDA, I can understand the commission wishing that to be work permitted with an order of conditions. And we can certainly go back to DPW and explain that that expansion of scope of the project will require a notice of intent. But the playground work and the drainage associated with the playground is part of the RDA that's before this commission tonight.
Okay. Well, we can take a vote tonight on the RDA and put it to a vote. Positive determination would bring the applicant back with
What
NOI.
Dave, can you, what are the choices we have? We usually do a -3, which means the work will not impact the Wetland Protection Act, right?
Right, but it can still be conditioned. There are,
What are the other than, what, I assume there's a -1 and there's a -2?
well,
Just a no, or if it's a no vote, it means they'd have to come back with a notice of intent.
right, I mean, if it's a positive, a -1 is that all the work is outside the commission's jurisdiction. That's clearly not the case here because there is grading in the buffer zone. And a -2 is that it will alter or it's work within a resource area, but it will not alter the resource area. -3 is work in the buffer zone, which will not alter a resource area.
Denial means if we denied it, which means they have to file a notice of intent.
Well, that's
We're
a-
saying it's within our jurisdiction.
It's
That would be a positive
a
determination.
positive,
Yeah,
right.
so we're saying it's within our jurisdiction.
Yes, I mean, it can only be a positive if it's in the commission's
And
jurisdiction.
we can say it's within our jurisdiction even though it may be outside of 100 feet.
Well, what the regulations say is that work outside the 100 feet, the commission can only get involved or can only require a notice of intent if a resource area has already been altered. So if there's.
My dilemma is I don't know that this project, even though the gentleman has told us that, I don't know that those two swales are gonna collect the water and keep it out of Freeman Lake. I haven't seen those calculations or whatever is involved to letting me feel comfortable.
So you're worried about surface runoff?
Yes.
Into
In
Freeman
this
Lake.
case, any of the swale material leaching into Freeman Lake.
Well, the way it's designed right now is that almost all of it is infiltrates down through the ground, which
That doesn't necessarily mean it always goes straight down. There can be movement underneath the ground, correct?
Well, yes, depending on the soils, I think Brian is very likely correct that this is.
I know, but we
almost
haven't
everything.
seen we haven't seen that data. As I said, my only concern is keeping incremental water flow out of Freeman Lake. I think the project in the playground's a good project. That's all.
I mean, one option we have is we could vote on this tonight, or we could allow the applicant a continuance to our next meeting for them to perhaps come back and present more information that might address some of the concerns that have been raised about the potential impacts and, the site, that type of
That's
thing.
fair enough by me.
Exactly.
I think, I mean, I don't have an issue with the playground at all. I'd like to see that redone. But I think the
Yeah.
runoff from the hill, some of it comes down to that fence that abuts
Right.
the playground.
Right.
So I don't see why that all isn't.
And that's where the
gonna be-
swale's gonna be, or one of the swales,
Right, I
right?
don't see why we're not taking care of that between the building and the fence.
We are. We're redirecting.
You put in a couple of yard drains,
Correct.
right?
There's yard drains kind of at the
But-
low side of it, but the swale that is primarily intercepting that flow that you're referencing is to the north of the playground. So it's in between the gravel drive and the ball field and then the playground. So
Right,
we're
it's not
actually-
on the,
we're-
it's not on the
It's not on the
building
building.
side.
We're intercepting it before it even gets to the building.
But the stuff that comes off, sure, that may be the fact for the ball field and that water that comes down, but the water that comes down from that brick building down the hill
So that's being picked up with kind of an expansion or regrading of the swale. So when the playground's replaced, the new fence is put up, and then an actual formal swale is being formed on kind of the outside line.
Of that
So
fence?
we're addressing that.
Of the
correct.
fence between the
Yep.
fence and the brick building?
And just to speak to a previous comment about calculations, we're happy to provide them, but they're not really required unless there's a specific situation that we're trying to meet, like a specific standard. Here, there isn't a standard outside of correcting erosion issues, which we've addressed in the plan. We don't have to worry about a pre-development to post-development condition because we're not fundamentally changing anything. We're not changing CNs, we're not changing ground cover, we're not increasing volumes. What we're doing is we're collecting water and redirecting it to make sure that it's not eroding in the manner that's happening right now.
We don't see that on a request for determination. We would see that on a notice of intent.
But all of that happens outside of the buffer. And the work within the
Excuse me.
buffer.
I've heard people say that for years.
Mm-hmm.
We are responsible for stuff that happens outside of the buffer if it affects conservation issues. Go look at our bylaw in the preamble. Things that happen upland from the 100-foot that impact within the 100-foot are within our jurisdiction.
And
We don't normally do it, but we can.
And I'm certainly not, saying that is not the case. What I am saying is that we are improving the
I think
existing
that
condition.
the chair made a reasonable recommendation that I'm willing to pick up.
That's what I'd like to do. I mean, we could, honestly, the votes aren't there to approve this thing
Understood.
tonight. So what I suggest is we come back in 2 weeks. Our next meeting's on the 24th. That'll give you a chance to, I think, present to the commission. Maybe it's, some more, some slides that kind of closely look at it a little bit more, but kind of lay it out for the commission to address the concerns the commission has. And maybe that's going to get the majority of the commission to a more comfortable spot, making sure that, that we're doing what we can do to protect the water quality of Freeman Lake. And we know we had a tough year, the past year out there with the aquatic growth and everything that was going on. So that's what I suggest. Come back in 2 weeks, give you a chance to, think about it a little bit more and maybe present, a little bit different slide where they could perhaps, address the issues and overcome that. Rather than, if we vote tonight and deny it, then you're gonna have to do all the advertising, there's the delay, there's the notices to the abutters. It becomes, it would certainly delay a good project, which I think we'd like to see the playground.
Right, that isn't
Fine.
our intent to delay the
No.
project.
Exactly. So that's my suggestion.
Another option would be to hire a peer reviewer. Get a second opinion. Brian can provide the calculations to the peer reviewer
Yeah.
and see if the
But the peer reviewer is not going to address the question that Billy raised, which I think is an important one. That
Which is?
is, until we know how the runoff from the hill where the brick building is impacting down in the playground area, we really don't know the ultimate impact.
Because that's where you get all the ruts, is from that area there. It's not from the ball field running down the other side into your retention pond or your swales. It's the water that comes down that hill that erodes the beach. It goes over the wall and cuts pretty deep ruts into the beach in a couple spots. And that's the water that comes from that, between the brick building and the fence.
So-
And that's what, that's what I'm concerned, that area. I don't have any problem with the playground being redone or regrading for your field and pushing the water to the north. That's not it. I'm concerned about that area between the fence and the building, and I don't see that it's being,
So,
So-
Yeah,
so I just want to make sure I understand, Bill. So I think, see where I'm moving the arrow? I think that's the area you're concerned about, right?
move the arrow, I don't see it. Yeah.
So it looks to me like this plan is at least trying to address it, that the flow, the grading is such that the flow is going down here to this catch basin and then heading off into this direction and then over here. And I gather, though, in my conversations with Brian, is that only in very exceptional circumstances will will this flow route, this flow path actually be utilized? Be only in really big storms. Now, over here, Brian, I think is
Can you lighten the screen up at all, David?
lighten it up or zoom.
Make it brighter, rather.
No, I don't think I can. I can zoom in a little bit more.
No, I think, because I know where it is, all right.
Okay. So, and I,
But Dave, I hear what you're saying. The applicant has not told me that swale is addressing Billy Vine's problem. Now, maybe it is,
And it's been.
but I
it's
haven't
been-
heard that.
It's been
And when-
told that's phase two, that's not a part of this, as other than a couple of yard drains.
Also, I heard a couple of the commissioners on the site walk say that historically, the runoff at that brick building is washing out the beach. I mean, that's not insignificant.
so that would be runoff over
I don't know
here.
where it's coming from. I'm
But-
assuming it's coming from the hill where the brick building is, and I think
The roof of the
People-
building and
Yeah.
and that hill.
it's not coming from the current playground. I heard that too.
But so is that area of concern then further, going in this direction this way?
Where's the building?
This is the building right here.
Right.
I can't see a damn thing, I'm sorry.
I can't make it out either.
Well, you see where I'm circling it.
It's,
No, I can't
can't
see,
see-
I
I
can't
can't see
see
anything
your
either.
so
arrow either.
if you see the edge of the contouring, it kind of forms a straight line. That's the face of the brick
The
building,
edge of the
if you will.
contour is 140 feet, right? The highest point is 140 feet,
Well,
correct?
yes.
Yes.
And,
so-
and I take it the brick building is it either 140 or higher?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It's
And
140 on the
and the
back
swale is
side.
gonna be built at 132 3/4.
Correct.
So there's an 8-foot drop-off, at least on this map, which, from what I understand, and it appears that a lot of runoff is going down in that direction, and also down from the 140 down, you see down at the beach, it's 128.
And this plan shows a lot of runoff going in that
Yeah.
direction, but it shows that it's being handled.
Correct.
How
So
does this show
right,
it's being handled?
right in between that area. So if you look at that 140 contour, there's a dashed line going from the 138, probably not the 138, the 136 contour down to that proposed yard drain. That dashed line is a swale in between the brick building and the playground.
Okay, I move,
Accepting
Mr.
that
Chairman, I
focus.
move that we continue this hearing till our next meeting, at which time I would request the applicant to provide us with information that shows how this proposal is addressing what we perceive to be significant runoff to the right of this project, and how the two swales that are gonna be constructed are gonna address that issue.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. McLaughlin. Do we have a second on that? Mark with a second. And any discussion before we vote? No discussion, all those in favor?
Yeah, well, wait a minute.
Oh, discussion, Bill?
Just so I understand, Brian, when you said phase two, when you're looking at phase two, what part of that is it?
Is beyond the bathhouse, if you will, so to the right. So the playground is phase
So you're
one.
saying phase one is right up to that brick building, from the
Pretty
top of the hill down?
Correct.
Yeah, and we're concerned about that area, right in there. Yeah,
Right.
right
Well, I
there.
know that when we were discussing it on site, when we asked a couple of questions, I understood that to be phase two, any work
Exactly.
in that area.
Yeah.
Not
Exactly.
that it was part
I
of this
thought your only
project,
work was being done from the fence
from the
in.
playground.
It's not from the fence in, so it's the limit of the contouring.
So something's fallen through the cracks in terms of communication here.
Yeah, we got to connect the dots on this. More comments before we vote?
No.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. And none opposed, unanimous. So it'll be a good opportunity to come back, let's, address it. Maybe there's some misunderstanding, maybe so a couple site pictures up there, and again, working with our agent, maybe
Certainly,
we can get over the concerns.
certainly. Thank you for your
Thanks,
time.
Brian. Okay, tonight's agenda, moving along, is another request for determination of applicability. This one is with respect to 14 Natalie Road.
I can read this.
We have a legal notice we have to read into the record first. Thank you, Mr. Agent.
So pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in room 204 at the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Bill Ricker Road, on Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, at 7 p.m. to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by property owner Tom Sullivan for proposed work within the 100-foot buffer zone bordering vegetated wetlands at 14 Natalie Road, further identified as Assessor's Map 131, Block 462, Lot 10. The project entails removal of 6 white pines for the purpose of protecting human safety and property. So I believe we have Mr. Martell here tonight. So
Mr. Martello, yeah, come forward, sir, right to the podium. And just give us a little more overview of what the work that's entailed here, sir.
Pretty much exactly what he said, removing 6 trees,
six
whatever
white
the
pine?
scope of work was, yeah.
Okay. How far away are those from the wetlands, do you know?
Probably the closest ones would probably be like 60 feet.
yeah, they're more than 50 feet.
Oh, good.
I'm
Did you
comfortable.
have a chance to look at the site?
Yes, yes, I'm
We've got a picture of the site plan. Where on this lot are the trees in question?
Let me,
I assume it's at the back, I assume it's at the back of the lot. I don't know, it's the very last one, Dave. Yeah,
so, let me see the scale on this. I think it is 1 inch equals 50 feet. So, I mean, I think 3 or 4 up here, and then there are another 3 or 4 over here.
I can't.
You can-
How's the topography?
Got my little Picasso, there you go, right there.
Yeah.
That's my Mozart right there.
So,
That's more our style, that's good.
Yeah.
Maybe I should see if you guys are hiring.
so, I mean, this actually doesn't show the lake too well. It's this dark area over here. But
Is the next slide up that we were first looking at, is that green area, is that the lake?
that's the lake, yes, schematically, yes. I mean, it hasn't been flagged.
So it's gonna give the homeowner a better view of the lake.
Um,
But I think your other picture says they're rotted. Are they
Yeah,
all,
it's safety
are
issue.
they
Yeah.
all dead? They are pine, right?
The majority of them, yeah.
Yeah, they don't last.
Yeah, they're in bad shape. I've seen that, and I know Carl.
Your intention is to
visit-
take the stumps down,
No.
leave them in place?
Yeah, we're not
That's
gonna, no stump grinding.
Commissioners, questions? Dave, Bill?
No.
Where on Natalie Road is this in relationship to the bend in Natalie Road? You go from Elm Street, you go down Natalie, and then it takes a sharp turn.
I'm gonna use my GPS to get home. I live off of Route 4.
I'd use my GPS to answer the question. The town's website doesn't
know.
work tonight. Does anybody know where 14 is relative to the curve in Natalie Road?
Well, I guess it's
forgot
not
my
the-
map
I
book in
guess
my
it's not
truck.
This curve, right? It's another curve.
Well, there's really only one curve on Natalie. I mean, it looks as if it may be, at number 14, it may be in the middle of the straight.
Are you cutting this with the crane?
Yep.
So you're just gonna do all, you're not gonna bring any equipment down near the trees themselves, per se?
No, right. What
Good.
one position the crane can reach, over 100 feet away to.
In the topo, is it go steep?
Say that again?
The topography, is it steep to the?
No, it's pretty flat.
It's
Yeah,
pretty,
it
it's
should-
pretty
yeah.
flat.
be, yeah.
So I'm looking at this bend what you're talking about. I would say 1, 2. So it's like the third house away from the bend.
Now,
So.
let me tell you why I asked the question, because these guys don't know either.
Okay.
Where Natalie Road takes a sharp bend,
Yep.
going to conservation land in the lake, there's an island. The island has been destroyed by the neighborhood kids. And I was interested as to how close this house might be to that, and it's
Gotcha.
fairly far away. You can't, the kids have put down, they put
If I
boats
see
out
any of
there,
the kids, I'll
there's
say
toilets
something
out
to 'em.
there. They have bungee cords to drip line, or whatever you call it, down into the island?
Oh, yeah, rope swing.
Drip line?
Okay. I had one other question. Is your client, you may not know this, does your client intend to plant any trees to replace any of these?
I'm not sure,
Okay.
you know.
Could you pass it on to them that we would, if it's possible, if he could plant some addition, to replace some of the foliage that they're taking away? I understand why you want to get rid of dead pine trees. They're
Yeah.
dangerous, but, okay.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Indigenous
Mark?
trees, indigenous.
Yeah,
trees.
exactly. To Mark's point, we want, if he's going to put anything, it'd be an indigenous native type trees, yeah.
And all you can do is relay the message.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else,
We don't have a
commissioners?
bylaw that requires
no.
that.
No, it's
No,
not
we don't.
required. Anything else from the commission? It's a public hearing. Does anybody from the public have any questions? Anything they want to say on this matter? All right, good. Good overview, Mr. Martell.
This is a request for determination.
Determination.
Mr. Chairman, I move we issue a -3.
Motion by Dave for -3.
And you can stay up, right?
Mark? Seconded on that
I think
one?
I got one more ahead of me,
Right,
too.
you can just-
Oh,
you can-
cool. All right. Let's take a vote then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, so Mr. Martell, that one's approved. And then moving right along here, we've got another request for determination of applicability. This is related to 8 Pecos Circle. And again, the CJ Martell from Martell Tree representing the applicant here. We have another legal notice.
Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in room 204 at the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Billerica Road, on Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, at 7:05 PM to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by property owner Ursula Wong for proposed work within the riverfront area to Farley Brook and 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at 8 Pecos Circle, further identified as Assessor's Map 111, Block 412, Lot 23. The project entails removal of 7 trees of mixed species and trimming of 1 oak for the purposes of protecting human health and safety.
Thank you, Mr. Agent. Mr. Martell, anything more you'd like to add?
He summed it up pretty well.
Okay. Topography, flat, same
Yep.
thing?
It
Okay.
it is
Good.
flat, and I can tell you that there is a problem. See, this is her
Yeah,
windshield of her car.
Oh, yeah.
That's not
from-
good.
From a falling branch.
Yeah.
And so I said there is a legitimate concern
Sure.
out there.
Where are these
Yeah.
trees in relationship to the wetlands that are on the property?
These, you can see here, these 4 are actually very close to Farley Brook, but they're also very close to the driveway.
So they're not, the trees are not in the wetlands?
No, not in the wetland. Well, they're in the riverfront area,
Yeah.
but upland. They're
Can
actually
you
in the-
remove the trees without having, without having people on the ground other than, although I think you said they're gonna scale the tree to top them?
Yeah, so I mean, the
'Cause what
crane's
I
gonna pull the
don't
pieces
want you
out.
tearing up the dirt around the tree that's
Yeah,
close to the wetlands.
no tree branches or anything like that are gonna get dropped to the ground.
And all of the motorized vehicles will be on the pavement as well, right?
Correct.
So,
Same thing, you're gonna reach in?
Yep.
so there should be no need to go into any vegetated areas.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from the commission?
I'm glad you guys are coming before us. I mean, a couple of years ago, nobody was, thought it was all done.
Exactly. Credit to the homeowners and to Martell Tree.
Yeah.
To be doing this the proper way, the correct way, and,
Is this, Dave, one of these situations where the homeowner has to pay an outrageous fee to print this notice and then?
Well-
Oh, yeah, they're paying for me to be here right now.
What's that?
I said they're paying for me to be here right
I
now.
understand that, but I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys heard, but it costs like $300 to post a notice.
Well, after tonight it will, yeah, because we've lost it didn't cost these folks that
No.
amount, but now that we've lost the Eagle Independent, and I'll talk more about it later on,
it's
yeah.
actually on the
I
agenda
think-
tonight for discussion
Yeah,
further,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't
I'm only joking. I don't get paid for this. If not, it's okay. I would ask, because I've never had to do this sort of thing ever before. If in the future, if I have to do this, if is it possible that I don't have to be present, that I make up some sort of a drawing or basically everything else except actually have to be here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just
Reasonable.
work with our agent, kind of check in with the agent.
You've got a
Yeah.
sense of the kind of questions that I ask.
Yeah.
And some of the other guys, so, yeah.
It was
Absolutely.
nice to see everyone.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
There's two smiling faces you didn't see.
All good?
Here, same question, if you could ask your client if there's any chance for them to replace any of the trees that cut.
Absolutely.
We would appreciate it. but-
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Bartel.
Thank you.
Vivian, you got our vote down, right?
Well, you haven't, I don't think you voted.
it yet.
All right, well then, all those in favor of this motion?
There's a -3 as
We're
well.
-3, Dave on the motion, Mark on the second, just in case anybody missed that. And all those in favor, say aye. Aye. And
CJ?
none. Unanimous.
So
All
it'll-
right.
it'll take me a couple of days, a few days to get you out, get the paperwork ready. I'll let you know,
Okay,
so.
okay. Talk to you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Vivian, thanks for keeping us honest up here. All right.
For light speed, I'm slow. Okay, it's okay.
Okay, so again, next we have a request for determination of applicability from the town of Chelmsford, 41 Mile End Avenue, with respect to pump station. And we have Weston and Sampson Engineering representing the applicant. And if the do we have a notice, another legal notice here? Oh, so we'll wait for the legal notice from our agent.
I'm gonna be hoarse by the end of the night.
Could be.
Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in room 204 in the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Billerica Road, on Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, at 7:10 PM, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by Michael Voznakis on behalf of the Town of Chelmsford Department of Public Works Sewer Division for proposed work within the 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands in the town right-of-way at 41 Milland Avenue, further identified as Assessor's Map 40, Block 131, Lot 48. The project entails improvements to the Milland Avenue pump station, including the construction of a new precast concrete valve vault, installation of new submersible pumps, and the installation of a new precast concrete shed with new instrumentation and control equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Agent, and now we'll hear from the Weston and Sampson engineer.
So Ryan Henley, Weston and Sampson Engineers, also one of the project managers for the project. As Dave pretty much described, it's the scope of the work really includes technical improvements to the pump station. All the work is going to be within the existing right-of-way and within the existing disturbed area. We are going to be including sedimentation control around during construction, including siltation control around the edges of the roadway, in addition to silt sacks and the catch basins. Yeah, it's mainly going to be within the existing right-of-way. We are also looking to reduce the impervious area of the existing pump station as well. And yeah, that's about it.
Well, thanks for the overview. Appreciate that. Let's see if the commissioners have any questions. We'll start right here next to me. Mr. Coughlin?
Is this replacing one that's there, or just improving it, or?
Improving it. So the existing pump station will remain.
What's the current life of that station?
I think it was constructed in the late 80s, early 90s.
So is this typical, we'll expect to see?
If there are
other
pump
j-
stations within wetland buffer zones, yes.
You'll go through the town and do them as they come up. Do they all need it, do you think, or is it going to be a one-off evaluation?
It depends upon what the existing conditions at all the other pump stations are. There are currently 41 wastewater pump stations in Chelmsford, so.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it really depends upon the,
So the footprint stays the same, you're not making it any bigger?
Nope,
You
it'll
said
all
it's less impervious, so you're getting rid of some asphalt? Is that what you're
Correct.
doing?
Correct. So the existing site actually has asphalt all around it. We're gonna be reducing that to just around the proposed building.
Hey, thanks, Dave. Bill?
I'm good.
Good. Mark?
Are you replacing equipment or the superstructures?
So just the equipment. So the existing station as it stands right now is what's called a suction lift pump station. So there's a wet well where all the wastewater is collected, and then a separate dry pit where the pumps are housed. So all of the equipment in the dry pit's going to be abandoned. taken out and abandoned, and then we'll be putting submersible pumps within the wet well. So we'll actually be moving where the wastewater is pumped away from the current wetlands line.
Okay, so I don't have anything in front of me to refer to. I noticed thing to be abandoned, existing wooden guardrail and existing wet well.
It says existing force main.
So what is a building coming down and is it a
So there's
precast
currently
unit?
no building there right now.
Oh.
So right now,
I
it's
didn't know
just,
that.
it's just a
Okay.
control cabinet, the access hatch for the dry pit, and then the generator. The control panel is gonna be going into the proposed building. The generator is gonna be retained, it's gonna go into the proposed building.
So that's typical, that photograph?
Yes.
Yeah, so this
yes.
is this is the Vincent Road pump
So-
station. So it'll look very similar to
Yes.
that once it's.
Okay.
Okay.
I had no clue what that you were talking about.
It's good to get that clarified, yeah.
I'm good.
Good. All right, John?
I'm good with that.
Dave?
For information, the equipment that you put in it, I assume, is the technology significantly better? Because it's what? It's 40 years ago? It's-
Yeah, it'll
There've
be
been-
much more efficient.
Just
once it's
generally,
put
there've
in.
been big improvements in the equipment?
I mean,
Or
it'll,
just typical?
typical. I mean, it'll actually be lower horsepower engines on the pumps, so it'll be a little bit more efficient, lower, electrical.
I asked that same question at the site visit, and I was told there'd be a lot more digital technology
Yeah.
involved with this one than there was with the old one.
The guys can monitor it from their
Yeah,
living rooms rather than getting in the
Phones.
truck.
probably. Probably get a text message.
Exactly.
Good. Any other commission questions?
Just, I'm still not clear on this, on the building, the structure you showed in that photograph, the image. Is that gonna be set on top of a slab?
Yes. So it'll be an above-ground structure. There's going to be no substructure on the building. It'll be set on a concrete slab. It's actually that building at Vincent Road, I believe, is all wood, but the building that we're proposing is a precast concrete building. So it'll just be on a precast
Okay.
concrete slab.
All right, okay. I'm all set.
Good, good. Anything else, commission? No? David? Information? No?
I have
Good.
nothing else.
Audience, this is a public hearing. Does anyone in the audience have any questions for the applicant or comments? None. Okay, good. This is a request for determination. Do we have a motion?
I move we issue a -3 request for determination for 41 Myland Avenue Pump Station.
All right, motion by Dave McLaughlin. Mark on the second.
Second?
And, actually, no, John had that hand up a little slightly quicker. So John on the second there.
confused.
Any discussion? He was very quick with that hand. Very quick, yeah. Any discussion before we vote? None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Unanimous. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Did you understand him? He's gonna put a precast building in?
All right, moving along in the agenda, we have another request for determination of applicability. This one is related to 105 Kristen Drive Extension. And we have Mr. Brian Goudreau will be representing will be the applicant representing the property owner, but we do have a legal notice first, so we'll get that legal notice into the record.
Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in Room 204 at the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Billrica Road, on Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, at 7:15 p.m. to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by property owner Brian Goudreau for proposed work within the 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands at 105 Kristen Drive Extension, further identified as Assessor's Map 135, Block 446, Lot 7. The project entails construction of a 12-foot by 16-foot, 192 square feet, stick-built shed on cinder block footings.
Thank you, Mr. Agent. And now, Brian, if you can give us a quick overview.
Thank you. For the record, Brian Goudreau, 105 Kristen. I'm looking to put up a shed. So the shed, stick-built, I'm gonna build it. It's gonna go on cinder block footings. So cinder blocks, there's gonna be, I believe, 15 individual piers underneath it. So ground disturbance is gonna be very, very limited. On the exhibit plan pulled from Chelmsford GIS, there's 2 discrete wetlands, one to the north in Thanksgiving Ground Forest that shows up on Mass GIS. We're about 95 feet to the overhang, and then only on Chelmsford GIS, kind of to the west, on the land of 103 and my property, there's another secondary wetland, and that's the one that's a little bit closer. I only made reference to the fact that there's 2 different wetlands there because 2 different sources show them. I worked with David. We checked the files to see if there were any recent filings, notice of intents in the area, to see if we could find a delineation. There wasn't one. So in kind of discussions with him, I filed the RDA, and I'm here. The only other item that kind of came up was what's going to happen with roof runoff. I'm going to put a drip edge underneath the eave of this, so it'll hit crushed stone and then go into the ground. So we're trying to make it as least amount of earth moving work as possible for me, because I don't want to be out there with a shovel for any longer than I have to be. That's the scope, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Well, thanks, Brian, for the overview. Appreciate that. Sounds like this may be pretty cut and dry, but let's see if the commissioners have some questions or any concerns. John, let's start at this end down there.
You gonna use a wattle there at all?
I wasn't planning on it because it's just pier locations that I'm digging up, so 2x2 holes about a foot deep, so I can put crushed stone in it.
And I think he intends to be in and out of there
Right.
in just a few hours, literally. That, you know, the soil will be removed, he'll get the crushed stone in, and then the soil will just be taken off-site or outside the buffer zone anyway.
Outside.
All well within less than 1 day.
Correct. So pier by
Okay.
pier.
All right. No, I'm good with it.
Thanks, John.
Everybody needs a shed.
I agree.
That's for sure. Sure. All right, Mark?
No, minimal disturbance, nothing.
Good. Bill?
It's fine.
Good. Dave?
What are you gonna store in the shed?
Garden tools, woodworking tools. I have a chop saw, table
Chemicals?
saw. No chemicals.
Fertilizer?
I don't fertilize.
Or no?
All right, good. Any other commission questions? This is a public hearing, so does anybody from the public have any questions for the applicant or any comments for the commission? Just raise your hand, let us know your name and address. Okay, nothing from the public input. This is another, again, a request for determination. Do we have a motion on this one to approve?
So I move we issue a -3 determination.
Motion by Dave, the
Second.
-3. Billy on the second. Any discussion before we vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. All right, next up on the agenda this evening is another request for determination of applicability. This is with respect to 16 Parker Road. The engineering firm, Taj Engineering, is representing the applicant this evening, and we'll have the legal notice first for the record, and then we'll have an overview from our Taj Engineering firm.
Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in room 204 at the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Bill Ricker Road, on Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, at 7:20 p.m. to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by property owner Paul Ivasian for proposed work within the 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands at 16 Parker Road, further identified as Assessor's Map 103, Block 412, Lot 1. The project entails construction of a 24-foot by 24-foot, 576 square feet garage addition, 10 by 10-foot, 100 square feet attached deck, and bituminous driveway extension.
Thank you, Mr. Agent. And now we'll hear from Mr. Afshar from Taj Engineering.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. Hushman Afshar from Taj Engineering. So the owner and applicant is proposing to add this two-car garage, 24 by 24. As you can see, the existing dwelling is very close to the border of 100-foot buffer zone. The garage, the proposed garage, is right on the start of the boundary of 100-foot buffer zone and extends in about 24 feet. So the nearest corner of the garage to the border of vegetated wetland is over 75 feet, and it's about, I would say, 50 feet out of 50 feet no build. There's also a deck being proposed in the back, 10 by 10, and the existing driveway, the existing carport, which is also about 80% of it within the 100-foot buffer, is going to get removed and replaced by the proposed garage. And the small breezeway connects, 5 by 6 foot breezeway connects the garage, the new garage to the dwelling. In order to access the garage, the existing bit apron is going to extend in front of the garage. There is an existing crushed stone trench on the side of the existing driveway. We are going to extend that all around up to the side of the deck in the back to handle any additional runoff created. There is a sheet flow, there's a over 75 foot, like I said, sheet flow that is all pervious for any runoff that overflows over the crushes some trench strip or shoot flow towards the back and towards the wetland. So there is a dumpster way out of the buffer zone proposed. We feel there is no adverse impact to the resource area in the back. So as a result, we would like to express an RDA.
Thank you for the overview. Just one quick question, Mr. Afshar. So in your professional opinion as an engineer, do you see any potential impact on our wetland resources or our wetland values?
No, sir, I don't. For the reason I mentioned, because we have a good amount of pervious area, and also with the trench drain that we have provided, everything is protected. The resource area is protected, plus the fact that during the construction phase, there is erosion controls and silt fence with wattles all around, and we are not storing anything at the site during the construction that can impact the resource area. So I think the resource area is well protected, and I don't believe there will be any adverse impact.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let's see, we have questions from the commissioners. We'll start again with John down the end.
What are you gonna do for the roof runoff?
Like I said, there is a trench, stone trench all around the foundation and the impervious area, the driveway, which is actually existing, and we're just extending it all around, all the way to the back.
Okay.
And it is a pretty big trench. I think if it is extended, it will serve the purpose for which it's intended.
Okay.
One question I did ask at the site visit, Hushi, and the person from your office didn't know, it may not be decided yet, is which, and I don't think it really makes a big difference, but, any idea which way the roof will pitch for the garage?
Yes, actually, it's going to be same as the existing dwelling, which is parallel to the road.
Parallel.
So the pitch of the roof is parallel to the road.
So the runoff from the roof will be directly in toward the back.
Half of it.
Half of it.
Right,
Yes.
right. From the ridge to the back, and then the rest. But as you can see, the topography and contours, they are all directing the sheet flow towards the crushed stone trench.
Yes, I think that'll work. I think that'll work.
Okay, good. John, is that anything further?
No.
No, go. Mark, moving along.
Just to labor that point a little bit further, that trench is gonna run from the deck to the front yard?
Correct. In your slide, the existing trench is right here, if I may. And we are just going to take it and extend it all around up to here.
And there's enough pitch that you can keep it?
Sure, yes, yes.
It doesn't show, I'd like to see it on the plan,
The
be
entire,
a little more specific, because
the entire, oh, here, it's here, which I'm going to, it's on this plan, which, as a result of our site visit, we added on, which I'm going to send it to you tomorrow.
Okay.
I should have sent it to you today.
You can already kind of see it with these grades. I mean, I know they're probably not easy to read,
Yeah, it's
but
right.
this is going down in this direction. But the revised plans will help.
that's all I got.
All for now? All right, Bill?
I'm good.
Good. David McLaughlin?
I'm good.
All right?
I guess just the, which is usually the case in, things like sheds and garages in the buffer zone. We've already talked about drainage. The only other concern generally would be what might be stored in the garage. Would it be possible, say, inside the garage, running around the floor to have some kind of a berm? A concrete berm when I assume it's gonna be on a slab, I don't know, maybe there'll be a 4-foot frost wall or something underneath, but I think ideally it would be nice to have some kind of berm, concrete berm, coming above the floor in order to, catch anything that might be spilled, anything like
I
that.
mean, at the entrance,
Well,
there is a frost wall, so the foundation wall will come up probably 8 to 10 inch,
Okay,
better than very,
okay, above the floor.
absolutely, yes.
Okay,
Good.
okay, that wasn't clear to me.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Dave? All right, good. This is a public hearing, so if somebody from the public has any questions or comments for either the applicant or the commission, please raise your hand, identify yourself. All right. Yes, sir.
My name is Badri.
Just right up to the podium, sir.
Oh, my name is Badri Upalepan, Jarridge Lane. Just a comment, maybe just to encourage who was the owner, but if the roof line of that's nothing to do necessarily with Concom activity, but if the roof line is adjusted so that in the future it's solar panel friendly, then hopefully somebody in the future can put panels, or if the owner wants it. That's all I had as a comment.
Thank you very
Valid
much,
comments.
and I'm sure that'll be conveyed to the owner. All right, anything else from the public? No? All right, we need, this is again a request for determination of applicability. Dave?
I move we issue a -3 request for determination for 16 Parker Road.
Motion by Dave. We have a second from the commission. Mark on the second. Any discussion before we vote? No discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None unanimous. You're all set, Mr. Fushi.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our agenda. This is again another request for determination of applicability. This one is with respect to 77 Concord Road. We've got another legal notice that we have to put into the record, and then we'll have an overview from the applicant's representative.
So pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in Room 204 at the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Billerica Road, on Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, at 7:25 p.m. to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by property owners Michelle and Matthew Nestor for proposed work within bordering vegetated wetlands and associated 100-foot buffer zone at 77 Concord Road, further identified as Assessor's Map 111, Block 412, Lot 77. The project entails relocation of an existing PVC drain, placement of existing boulders along with 25-foot no disturb wetland setback and removal of invasive exotic vegetation.
Great, thank you, Mr. Agent. And now, Mr. Nestor, if you could just give, if there's any more information you'd like to share with the commission, just let us
Remember,
know.
we heard this gentleman a couple of weeks
You
ago.
did look really familiar.
Yes, thank you. I'm Matt Nestor, 77 Concord Road.
Yeah.
We met with the commission in March. Thank you again for the discussion and for having us. So we've provided the plan based on our discussion with you. I think the only thing that I would add is that we're proposing a buffer planting in this area. So the trees that have been infested with bittersweet, to kind of replace and replenish that area with native species. We've already purchased the plant material. There's been one minor change based on advice from the nursery. Instead of balsam fir, which deer apparently love, we're going with spruce, which they do not, but are also native. River birch, 9-bark. We have 8 trees and about a dozen shrubs at this point to start to fill in this area. So we're looking forward to moving out the bittersweet and replacing with native species. So
That sounds
happy to
great.
answer your questions, though.
Well, that sounds great. I mean, we really support, you know, you and other homeowners going with the native species, and we certainly share your concern about these invasives, which we want to minimize and eliminate wherever we can. So I think you're going to hear support from the commission, but let's see, we'll start with John, see if there's any questions.
The pool's still being built, right?
Yes, pool's in.
Okay. We were good with the pool.
Yes.
That's what I
Yeah,
thought,
that
yeah.
was approved.
Yes,
Yeah,
it was
that's-
approved. We have an order of
right, yeah, that's
conditions that
what
we're
I
working
thought.
through on that, yes.
Yeah. But the bittersweet and all that's gonna be all removed.
Yes, so we've been working closely with David, the major trees and the thick vines. I was tempted to bring you an example of the vine, but I provided pictures if you.
I've seen enough of it.
It's horrendous. It's a lot of work, but
Engraved in our minds.
yeah. So there were good resources available to us, and we're working through those. Town of Concord has good guidance on how to dispose of it. Our plan right away is to chip it before any berries come. That'll be our kind of first road of mitigation. And this is going to be an ongoing effort that we have to keep up with.
Yeah.
There's also some honeysuckle that's also invasive that we'll take out. That's easier. But anyway, that's the gist of the plan.
Oh, that sounds good to me.
Good, thanks. Mark, anything?
No, I like the plan, I commend your efforts.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Good, Bill?
Didn't you have to move the drain too?
Yes.
Redirect that? Is that all done? or-
Yes, it is.
Good.
That is done. And on the north part of the property, that drain that was, as you recall, done before we bought the home
Right.
by the original builder, we relocated that per our discussion in March. We discussed at that time that the discharge from that pump created a new wetland.
Right.
And we discussed moving that, expecting that it would dry out. It is clearly drying out.
Good.
And we also discussed going back to the 2016 wetland marking to pull the 25-foot buffer from there, because with the new wetland as it was delineated in the recent project we had done, it comes within just a few feet of our house,
Right. And that drain created that wet area anyway.
clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's good. Yeah, well, all set.
Good, thanks. Dave, anything?
You've got instructions from a nursery in Concord as to how to address bittersweet? You said?
No, the Town of Concord Conservation website has good instructions, and so that's been a reference. And then there's sorry, you're gonna.
No.
There's another document, I think a Mass DEP from 2003 that describes how to do buffer planting.
You're
so
gonna have to be doing it every year for a few years, you know. Our experience.
probably forever.
Our experience has been successful, has been taking the cuttings from the bittersweet and putting them in black
Black bags.
plastic,
Mhm.
letting them sit out on the driveway or in the hot sun for 2 or 3 weeks to dry out.
Mhm.
And then we've had success in burning it after that. But they have to be really dried out first. So, sounds like you've heard of that.
Yes,
The other point, I think I may have mentioned to you or not, we have 2 tools in the Conservation Commission that we could lend you, to allow you to, for not fully mature bittersweet, but grown bittersweet, to actually get under the roots and lever the roots out, if you ever wanted to borrow them.
Yes, and I have no idea where to borrow them from.
See David.
Mr. Agent over here.
They're probably sitting in the cellar here somewhere. I don't know whether.
Or understaffed.
They may be out in Sunny Meadows. I'm not sure.
We're in frequent contact, so we'll talk about it.
That's all I had.
Good, thanks, Dave. This is a public hearing, so if anyone from the public has anything for the commissioner or the applicant, just raise your hand and let us know. No public input then, good.
I just had
David.
one other question. So Matt, just a reminder, and I don't want to presume, maybe you didn't forget, but that the order of conditions for your house requires that the 25-foot no disturb setback from the wetlands be marked with vegetation, and you do have a note to that effect on the plan.
Yes.
Demarcation of 25-foot buffer zone by natural growth, native plantings. Have you thought about, and I think the order of conditions specifically called out high bush blueberry. I don't know if you're intending to do that. I don't think it's a huge issue, but have you thought about what you're going to plant to
Yeah, so
satisfy that?
we're open to the high bush blueberry if the commission feels strongly about it. We think the deer are going to attack it. And so that's our hesitation on that particular species. But we have red twig dogwood, mountain laurel, 9-bark, et cetera, that can grow into a thick shrub and spread. And so that was more of our intention to use those species, but we're certainly flexible about that.
Those certainly sound good to me, and I think they will grow in that location. And it probably, if you want the certificate of compliance sooner rather than later, it probably makes sense to do those plantings first. But that's up to you.
Thank you. Yeah, fair enough. Our first step in the project is to clear the ground of the thick vines, and then plant materials going in the ground. We're ready to go.
So,
Good.
I think this is a great job.
Excellent, good. Well, let's have a vote then. Do we have a motion then? I think, Dave, you were in the middle of making a motion, weren't you?
Not yet. I move that
Moving right along,
I
yes.
move that we issue a -3 determination for 77 Concord Road.
Thanks, Dave. And,
Second.
Seconded by Bill. Any discussion before we vote? No discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None unanimous. You're all set. Thank you, Mr. Nestor.
everyone.
Good to
Have a
see you
nice
again.
night. Thank you.
Good luck. Very good.
David, do you have internet access?
Yes.
I don't. You can bring up, for this next one, can you bring up the GIS for
yeah.
32 Fifth?
You know, what I'd like to do is actually jump one ahead to the notice of intent that was continued. That was the 13 Acton Road one, because I understand from talking to the agent earlier tonight that was going to be a request just to continue it without
Yes.
discussion to our next
Yes.
meeting.
Yes.
And
That only needs a vote.
Okay.
A motion and a vote.
So we just need a motion. So on 13 Acton Road, could I just have a motion then to continue to our next meeting, which is May 24th, without discussion?
So moved.
So moved by Mark, second by Dave. Any discussion? None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, so 13 Acton Road has been continued to our next meeting.
And you might as well do the same thing with Turnpike, because they've
Turnpike.
also requested.
Okay, and again, requested by the applicant was 104 Turnpike Road. Continue without discussion to our next meeting, May 24th. We have a motion on that.
So move.
Dave on the motion, and seconded by Bill Vines. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, good, thanks, great. So great, so took care of those two. Then going back to our agenda. We now have a notice of intent with respect to 32 Fifth Lane, and we have a legal notice to read into the record.
Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in Room 204 at the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Bill Ricker Road, on Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, at 7:30 p.m. to consider the notice of intent filed by property owners Michael and Tara Purrington for proposed work within the 100-foot buffer zone to Hart Pond at 32 Fifth Lane, further identified as Assessor's Map 123, Block 471, Lot 2. The project entails construction of additions to an existing residence, associated drainage, and landscaping.
Thank you very much, Mr. Agent. And now we'll hear from the applicant with an overview of what they want to do.
My name is Mike Purrington. I'm the homeowner, representing myself. He described largely what we're looking to do. We're looking to do kind of two pieces. One is a proposed addition on the east side of the house that's within the 100-foot setback. These are both tightly constrained by topography on our lot. You can see in the back we've got a sewer easement. The street is right there. The street actually used to touch our house when we bought it. We've got two close lot lines on either side. The second piece, as you can see, there's existing foundation that continues into the 50-foot buffer. That's full foundation with footers and a concrete slab on the floor. Right now, there's partial structure there. There's a structure there that's currently our living room, and there's an L-shaped deck. The deck's 40 years old. We're looking to replace the deck and replace the structure with a new deck and new, slightly take some of the existing space from the existing deck and make the existing living room a little larger. Inside the 50, we're not going to touch the soil at all. There's already existing foundation there. We're looking to improve all of the drainage. There's currently not really any control on any of the drainage. There's gutters with downspouts, but the downspout for the piece that's inside the 50 just drains basically straight towards the lake. We've proposed putting in a dry well to capture all the water for that section within inside the 50, which will be a huge improvement to what's there now, where it either drains under that lower deck or actually through the deck into that confined basement area, which is quite literally 600 square feet of wet, damp, moldy space that we can't do anything to. So our main goal is we need to do something to that space to seal it off so that we can actually, fix the water problems that we have with it in the process of doing this other more general kind of home renovation. We've been in the house for 17 years. We're active participants in the Hart Pond Association. We certainly respect the lake. I certainly understand why I'm here, and I'm willing to work with anybody, to meet the requirements and do the things that we want to do. We've spent thousands of donations over the years with the Hart Pond Association, treating the lake, keeping the lake healthy. So we certainly understand those things, and I want to be able to improve that area that we have, which right now is really terrible, in a manner that we can accommodate the runoff, and in addition, ideally with the roof pitch in a manner that we can put on a solar array, generate some electricity, which if it's arranged that way, which would be facing south, allows us to take the drainage water on either side of the house. So the dry well locations are tough. You can clearly see that we're really constrained on where we have space to put a dry well. We're open to having a dry well on the other side, either in lieu of that one or as well. It would probably be best suited in that section behind that giant pine tree that you see. It would be inside the 50, but there's fairly flat grade there. It would be basically inside where the silt fence is drawn in there. The silt fence and the, I forget what that thing's called, the snake thing.
Hay bales?
Yes, thank you.
Wattle, straw wattle?
So wattle, that was what I was going for. So I think that kind of covers what we're attempting to accomplish here. Like I said, I think the biggest point is that we've got this area of undesirability. I mean, there's already foundation there. It was put in when they built the house, and I've got to figure out some way to handle the water that we've got there. And at bare minimum, I mean, the deck's 40 years old. I've got to do something with that. The structure is suffering a bit because of the water issues. water mold issues. So there's certainly an impending issue there that we need to resolve. And in the process of resolving that, I want to do it in a manner that, we can improve, because I know it's close to the lake. We understand that. We understand that that's typically a zone that we don't do stuff in, but we're stuck with what we've got there, and I think we can do a lot to improve it, to make it more acceptable and, better for everybody.
Good. Well, thank you, Mr. Burlington, for the overview. We'll see if the commission has questions. I just want to say first, though, that certainly Hart Pond is one of our most valuable and sensitive wetland resource areas, conservation areas we have in the town, so we certainly want to make sure that we take a close look at any proposals with work that's close to Hart Pond, and we appreciate the fact that you want to really make things better, if possible, so we appreciate that. So let's see if the commissioners have questions or comments for you, and then we'll go to the public after that. Mr. McLaughlin, anything?
When was the original house built?
75.
So that's 25 and 22? So it's 47 years? 75? Okay. Just for all of your information, we have limits of construction, but they are not limited on houses built prior to October 15th, 1990. So our 50-foot no build and some of our other limitations on construction do not apply to this because of its age. Okay. Tell me what you're doing down near the water. I don't understand. You're putting on an addition and a deck. What's there now?
Can I come around here?
Yes.
So this area here is almost entirely an existing deck.
So it's a deck now?
Yeah.
You're gonna tear it down and rebuild it, or you're
So
gonna add to it?
I want to tear that deck off. I want to make this all structure, so basically expand this living room over the same existing footprint, and then make the deck smaller for the outer 8 feet of that piece of the foundation comes all the way out to the end here. So you can see underneath there where he's drawn in, the existing foundation comes all the way out to here.
Is the proposed deck closer to Baptist Pond than the existing deck?
It is only in that there's like 30 inches of that foundation wall that sticks out there's the previous owner built a drainage roof under that deck that does nothing but collect pine needles, but that last 30 inches of that is where that roof part sticks out, and there's photos there that you can kind of see that. My goal behind bringing the deck all the way to the end is that enables us to build it as a waterproof deck and completely seal that entire impervious area that's already there.
So the existing lower deck goes to, looks like within 10 or 15 feet of the Baptist of Hart Pond? The existing? Or is that
The lower deck?
Is that gonna go away?
No.
The existing lower deck stays,
Yes,
and that's currently about 15 feet from Hart Pond?
probably. Yep.
Okay, all right. Where is all the, you mentioned it, but talk to me some more about it. Where is all the proposed roof runoff gonna go from the additions?
So for this addition, we're going to collect it and send it to a dry well we've proposed in this area on the
That's
west
the one
side of the house.
you're not sure whether you can put that there? Is that the one?
It's certainly closer to the property lines and the foundation.
Okay, I thought you made some reference to something that you weren't sure.
Well, I know one of my neighbors has expressed concern about it being there.
Well, does it meet setback regulations? I mean,
I don't believe so.
Well,
No.
that's not a conservation issue.
Okay.
If it does, that's Board of Appeals, Planning Board, whatever.
So let me I'm sorry. It doesn't meet the setback requirements for a dry well as far as the state regulations of being 5 feet from property line or 5 feet from foundation.
And that's not ours, is that?
How about from the water table? Do you know where the water table is? And how big that?
Assuming it's the lake, it's probably at least 10 feet below that.
Below the bottom
I think
of
you
it.
can actually see, I think he's got the elevation of the lake 196, and we're up up in the two teens, I think.
David, do we have jurisdiction over that dry well that he's talking about, or not? Or does somebody else have jurisdiction?
Well, I mean, it's in the buffer zone, so I mean, the commission,
No, but he was talking, I was asking him about setbacks.
no, that's not an issue for the commission. The
But
setbacks are.
but our jurisdiction is to the actual construction of it within the buffer zone.
Right.
And does it meet, so, okay. How about on the other side of the other proposed addition? How about, where's the roof runoff going from that one?
I think our original plan is to construct a rock trench all the way around with controlled runoff.
French drain kind of thing?
Sure.
Is that on the plan?
I don't think that's actually shown on the plan. If it ends up that a better solution is to have the dry well on this side, then we most certainly can collect the water off that and put it in the dry well.
Well, we're not gonna, we're not gonna suggest a solution to you.
Okay.
Your engineer and you should have a
Absolutely.
solution that you bring to us.
Sure. And at the moment, our solution is to have the dry well there and use French drains and rock around the other one to control the
So
runoff.
You're suggesting that no additional runoff from this project will go into Hart Pond? It's all
Certainly.
gonna be captured some way
Certainly.
or another?
Well,
That's definitely a
actually gonna
priority
be-
of ours.
It's actually gonna be less runoff
Yes.
going in Hart Pond.
Yeah. Are
That's-
you gonna pick up with that French drain and with the detention pond, whatever, are you gonna pick up runoff from the main house, existing house as well? or not?
I can with that one, I can, because the current house drains this way. It's flat roof, so
I
it
mean, if
doesn't
you could
drain that way
ca-
at all.
If you could catch all of the roof runoff into those two areas, that would be, as David said, that would be a good improvement.
And like I said, for the main part of the house, we certainly could, because the downspouts are here.
Yeah.
Getting water from here all the way
No,
around.
no,
there.
your
Right.
French drain over on the other side
Absolutely.
probably should be adequate based on whatever calculations Mr. Hamel does for you.
Yes.
The proposed deck is, you're gonna need us to waive the 25-foot no disturbance. Can you keep that proposed deck outside of that so we don't have to waive it?
So ideally, no, only because, like I said, the goal is to get to the end of the foundation so I can seal off that whole impermeable floor
What
of
is-
that
what-
basement.
What's the existing lower deck made of? The
The
one in
lower
front
deck is just decking,
of- Decking,
wooden deck.
sitting on the ground?
More or less, yeah.
Mike sent me some really good photos I can bring up. I'll have to temporarily take this.
Well, is there one in the handout that you gave us?
I believe I forwarded those
Yeah,
to
I've
the
seen-
commission,
okay.
but I can bring those up.
And I certainly respect the 25-foot setback. We're not going to disturb anything within, I mean, yes, we're going to construct an extra 30 inches of deck there, but there's not going to be any sort of soil disturbance, no changes at all to really
I mean,
any of the ground.
And I'm sure you're aware, we have the 25-foot no disturbance for a reason.
Oh, sure, yeah. I guess my point was, it's already disturbed, and I'm just looking to make it better.
I mean, Hart Pond is a tough, tight area, and we are concerned about construction that and as you know, you're paying to have the invasives removed every year
Oh,
from
certainly,
Hart
yeah.
Pond, right?
Oh, I see it now.
So, yeah, you can see,
Yeah.
there are actually some that show it a little bit better. But this is the existing quote-unquote foundation. It's not clear what its original purpose was. One of the things I've been trying to do, I've been unsuccessful so far, is to try and go back in time with a paper trail, see if the Conservation Commission at one time ever did approve this construction. I was unable to find anything recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So if a prior commission did issue an order of conditions for the construction of the original house, or some iteration of the original house, including this foundation. It wasn't recorded at the registry, so I don't know if that was the case, that an order was issued and never recorded, or whether there was some work that was done out here without approval, and a prior commission ordered a cease and desist and allow the foundation to stay, because to remove it would have been potentially more impact to the pond. I just don't know, and I'm not sure we'll ever know.
You've got a couple of other pictures, David, I don't know if they're handy there. One shows that lower deck that I was asking some questions about.
Yeah,
I've got some different pictures than you do, but it's the same. And then one is the area underneath the deck, one of the decks, which
Well,
is.
so this is the lower deck.
That's the upper deck.
Oh, that's the upper
Yeah,
deck, okay.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about, those pillars there.
Yep.
So, and as far as the history of it, I have the original plans from the house from when they built it. And it shows basically exactly what's built there. Pour the foundation. There's actually the back half of my house. There's footings from the existing structure from the existing camp that was there back in '75, and abutting new foundation to that, all the way up to where it exists today. And it very specifically shows the house being set back. It's 23 feet from the end of those.
So the proposed deck it will come all the way out to the end of the foundation here?
Ideally, yes, so that I can get rid of that roof thing that's there and seal this off properly and catch all that water so that it's not an issue underneath there anymore.
Dave, anything?
I would just like to see a revised set of plans that shows how all the roof runoff is gonna be captured.
Yeah.
I don't have any other, and I recognize, I mean, if we can significantly improve the site, waiving a couple of feet for a 25-foot no disturbance is not a big deal.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Bill?
So, you're saying you want to extend the deck out that 30 inches to keep the water from going down below, but if it's just a deck, isn't the water going to go between the boards? Or how?
No, it's gonna be sealed, like basement area all the way out to the end there.
But if it's a deck, you can have it in a deck. What's going to keep the water from going through the deck to that
It's gonna
side?
be a sealed deck, so gonna have a sealed deck solution with rain catchment, so that there can be dry area underneath it.
So you're going to rebuild it to that spec?
Right, and honestly, I don't have fully architected plans yet, but whether that ends up being a rubber roof with decking on top of it,
Okay.
or whether it ends up being a deck with manufactured catchment underneath it.
Right.
But it's gonna be airtight, it's gonna be watertight
Okay.
is the goal.
If you're looking for our approval at some point, you've got to have all of these things in the plans that we see.
Okay,
Otherwise, you're gonna have to come back to us with another application, which you may not, it's easier if you get it all in one set of plans and get one approval or whatever from us.
okay.
Otherwise, you will be back here in 6 months when you want to do something else.
Do you have to go to the Board of Appeals, or have you been to any other board for setbacks, or do you have to?
I got zoning, variance for the piece on the side. This piece, the opinion of both the commissioner and the planning director were that it wasn't in their jurisdiction because it's not changing any of the conformities in its existing structure.
So you just need our approval to
Yeah.
do the work? Okay. That's all my questions.
All right, thanks, Bill. Mark?
The lower deck here, you're not doing disturbing any soils at all?
No.
And you
I could
have-
probably even have the workers not set foot in the soil if we needed to, but
And you're gonna remedy the runoff?
Yeah.
Can you go back to the other proposed addition?
This.
Is that existing now, any of that?
no, that's brand new.
So you're gonna have to do, that's within, it's at 51 feet, I believe, is that
Yep.
correct? What are your plans on that? Are you gonna dig a foundation
Yeah,
in that?
it needs to be full foundation because the point of that is to replace a spiral staircase that we have. And the only way to replace it is to have a full foundation all the way to the ground to put in another staircase. Two-story addition with, as you can see, a porch on the front for an entryway. The proposed addition on the lakeside, on the south side here, is single-story.
Okay. I guess it doesn't under our jurisdiction because it's a lot small, under the age of the construction doesn't warrant us to,
He went to the Board of Appeals, too.
yeah.
But our 50-foot no build doesn't apply to it because of the age of the house.
Yeah, grandfather.
It's grandfathered.
Right, that's
Yeah.
my
Is that what
point.
you meant?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I guess Billy brought up a question too about the Caltech chamber. Is that what you're gonna use there for the kitchen and water?
I think that's what he said, yeah.
Yeah. Did you ask him about elevation?
Yeah, oh, he said that he hasn't done any test holes to see. You need a 2-foot separation between that and the groundwater. That's why I asked the question of
Right.
the elevation of the groundwater.
We're gonna need all that stuff for a final plan,
Okay.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah, the kitchen and the water of that proposed deck next to the lake, the elevation of that, Caltech, and where are you? Is that the property line? I don't even know, is there a north and south on that? I can't see.
You're seeing the two property lines.
It's
So,
very narrow,
yeah,
very narrow
it's only
lot.
50 feet.
Okay. So everything you dig out of there is gonna have to go back
Yeah.
towards,
And there's actually the street right there, so everything we dig out of there is gonna go on the other side of the street.
okay. So nothing's gonna go cast towards the water.
Oh, no, no.
Oh, no.
And not only that, I mean, the dumpster is probably gonna have to go across the street as well.
Right.
And was there a tree in question too, that you wanted to
So-
remove?
Well, I mean, yes, I didn't mark them on this one, or he didn't mark them on this one.
The big conifer?
There's 3 huge pines there.
Did you
There.
did you send?
I sent photos, I think. Those were in the photos I included. I'm not.
I want to mark those on the plans.
Like,
There's
okay.
one on
There's
the
one
plan,
marked
right?
on there.
Yeah.
Because that one, I think if we decide to put the catchment on the other side to catch all of the rainwater off the roof, that would need to go, yeah. So there's, kind of catch the very faint glimpse of the third there. But this one, there's these two, there's one and another one behind it, are huge, 30-inch pines. The other one's about a 20-inch pine. The furthest one's about 9 feet from the house. That closest one's about 12 feet from the house.
Okay.
And I didn't necessarily put it on the plan because I don't necessarily want something like that to tie this up. I mean, we can leave it for now, and then I can come back to you guys about doing it later on if we need to. But if the plans are going to necessitate us doing something in this space here for rain catchment, then probably at least that closest one would have to come out.
How tall is the tree?
They're big trees. I don't know the exact height of it,
Well,
but
how tall is the tree relative to the distance from the house?
oh, I mean, it's probably
Fell
75
over,
foot.
would it hit the house?
Oh, yeah. It's going to hit the house. It's going to hit the street, power lines and everything.
I don't care about the street.
It's going to hit my neighbor. That one actually leans. It's going to hit my neighbor's
Take
house.
out a couple houses.
It's going to hit my neighbor's house, not mine.
Is it healthy?
That one, out of the 3 of them, is probably the least healthy. The one closer to the lake is a big, huge, healthy tree. But my biggest concern with that one is it's on the slope, and you can see where the slope, it could very easily, so with shallow roots,
Fall
the
into
wind hits it
fall
and
into the
pulls it out
lake.
of the slope.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, I think during the project, we'd like to take it down. If I can submit that in the next
Here's-
proposal.
I'll say what I said again.
Yeah.
All the stuff you want to do should
Yeah.
be on the plans that you present to us for
Sure.
approval.
And like I said,
Don't do
I just
it-
didn't want that one to
don't
tie
do
this
it
up, that's all.
piecemeal.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can have your engineer show those on the plan. I know it gets pretty busy there.
Yeah, well.
Oh, put the trees on there? Oh, absolutely will, yeah.
Tree removal.
And you're gonna stump them, obviously, because you're gonna take the backhoe and pull the stumps out of there, right?
That one, yes. The other 2, we could probably leave.
If you can
And I'll
leave the
certainly
stumps,
replace
you
them
can-
with hardwoods, if that's,
Good for erosion.
Yeah,
control.
again, you've heard the conversation tonight. We're all for
oh, no.
indigenous trees.
Well, I mean, I've lived there a while. I know a lot of, what what we look for, and, I certainly I'm trying to make it better,
That's all I got a question on. Just make sure everything that you do wanna, you like to do, we have it on the plan.
Yeah.
Good. Well,
I
thanks,
think
Mark.
when we submitted this is kind of what we wanted to do. And like I said, I've recently learned neighbors got a concern about that dry well. So I think we might go back and see what we do about that.
Okay. Get the elevation.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark. Good.
Good job.
Good, John, you're up.
Well, he's gonna be coming back.
Yeah.
He's gonna need to dig a couple test pits and to actually design the Caltech,
The Caltech chamber.
right?
I mean, the other thing is the commissioner, at least a few of the commissioners may want to go out and do a site look around there. I mean, it's very close to Hart Pond. Hart Pond's one of our most sensitive areas, so it might be well worth having at least a few commissioners go out for a site walk.
Right.
Yeah.
More comments, John?
No, I'd be open to a site walk. I
Well,
mean,
why don't we do it once he tells us everything he wants to do?
okay.
I wouldn't go out before, because he's liable to want something else, and you say, well, we gotta go out and take another look.
Well,
Right.
You've been out there.
Yes, and after I say what I'm going to say, maybe the commission will want to do a site visit sooner rather than later. So Mike has kind of alluded to it a couple times. He hasn't explicitly mentioned it, but I just learned yesterday that this Caltech chamber right here is very close to the neighbor's drinking water supply well.
They don't have town water?
Apparently not. Okay, I mean, she wrote a letter.
Yeah.
She's here and probably will speak at some point tonight. But she did write a letter that I forwarded to the commission.
It's a Board of Health issue too, right?
Well, possibly, but I think if her well is within 10 feet or even 15 or 20 feet of this leaching chamber, I think that's a legitimate concern. I didn't know about it when I did the site visit earlier, prior to the hearing, but I do recall that the house, her house, is very close to Mr. Purrington's house, and so if the well is in between the two houses, it's got to be very close to where this chamber, this Caltech chamber, is being proposed. And I myself would like to go out and do another site visit, take a closer look at that. But Mike has mentioned a couple of times that, to move it over on the other side of his property is feasible, and sounds like he's willing to do it. So I think that that's something that, should be strongly considered.
Thanks for bringing that up. And so we've had an opportunity for the commissioners to ask some questions, make some comments here. And we're going to now kind of transition to the public input, public questioning phase of this hearing. We do have a letter that came in. Maybe Mr. McLaughlin, if you can read that letter into the record for us, and then
Well,
we'll
it's not too long.
proceed to the audience and see if the audience has any questions or comments they want to make this evening. But I will say that, we'll be continuing this matter to another meeting, so the commission's not going to make a decision tonight, but we are looking for input from folks. So Dave, if you can give us
This
that
letter
letter.
is from Kelly Maniatakos, 36 Fifth Lane. I'm writing in reference to 32 Fifth Lane. I live next door at 36 Fifth Lane. I've owned my home for over 20 years, which has been in our family for over 60 years. I purchased my home from my aunt's estate, and I know the history of the neighborhood, having spent summers at the pond my whole life. Back in 1975, 32 Fifth Lane was a very small seasonal cottage. Dr. Louis Yared purchased the small cottage, had it torn down, and replaced it with the home that stands there today. At that time, there was a portion of the new foundation facing the pond that was allowed to remain, but was restricted from being built upon. From what I recall, the new foundation was built too close to the pond, which would be in violation of the 50-foot setback rule. Just as a parenthetical, I don't believe the 50-foot setback rule was put in place until after 1975. It was left unfinished and was used as a patio by Dr. Yared. I visited the Conservation Department at Town Hall to look at the records from 1975 for 32 Fifth Avenue. The folder contained a document from 1969 and then documents from 1984. However, nothing from 1975 when the cottage was knocked down and the current house was built. There was a document from 1986 when the next owners, the Neals, had to request a variance to build a deck over the portion of the foundation that was Mr. Yared's former patio. This is the only documentation that refers back to the house built by Dr. Yared. I'm concerned about the construction of the new waterfront addition and how it will impact me and my property. I want to be a good neighbor and continue to live and enjoy my home. While the Conservation Board is considering the proposed addition for 32 Fifth Lane, I would like to have my concerns addressed. And then she talks about well contamination, which I think is the thing you were talking about, David. I have a shallow well that is located in the adjoining side yards between our homes. I am concerned the water runoff from the proposed addition may negatively impact my well. This is a great concern, as this is my only water source for my home. And then she provides us with some pictures.
Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate that. Put that in the record. All right, this is a public hearing. Anyone from the public, if you want to ask some questions of the applicant or make comments to the commission, just raise your hand, come on up, give us your name and address. Sir, come on forward.
Badri Upliapan, Jarridge Lane. Just a comment, I just happened to be in this because I have the next item here, but looking at this in terms of long-term planning, if I think this particular residence has natural gas-based hot water-based heating from the assessors database, and in the future, if natural gas is a source of fuel that is not available based on net zero commitments that the state has made and the climate action is moving towards, and may not happen for this particular home, but if a significant portion of the home changes, then that fuel supply may be at a premium, and therefore, if there's any other mitigation techniques that this particular homeowner needs to be doing right now in sort of planning, it may be worth doing that right now, and it's a thought process. That's all.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else? Questions, comments for the commission? Yes, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Kelly Manatakis. I live at 36 Fifth Lane. I was the person that wrote that letter to the commissioner. I do have concerns about the water runoff contaminating my well. There is town water in the neighborhood, but I chose to stay with the well because it's a good source of water. My second concern was the viewpoint from my property to the pond. And I've been working with Mike, and he's willing to take a look at the addition and work with me so that it wouldn't impact my view. There was a mention about the 50-foot setback, and if it was intact in 1975. Well, in the records at the town hall in 1969, there was a notice of purchase from Mr. Leonard, had purchased the property for $1,500, and in it, it specifically says that the property was built on a 50-foot, maybe it was just a reference point, but it said a 50-foot setback from the property line, so I just wanted to share that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that information. Good. All right, anyone else from the public? Questions, comments for us this evening? Very good. All right. Well, we're going to need to continue this to our next meeting, which will be May 24th. And we also, when do we want to do a site walk? Does a Tuesday evening work again, say the 17th, and a Tuesday when we're not meeting?
Yeah, sure.
5 o'clock, perhaps? Work out 5 o'clock on Tuesday the 17th?
Sounds doable.
Do you want to see if your engineer's available before you agree to that date? Do you want Mr. Hamill to be there or not? That's your call.
Okay.
Well, Well, just let them know.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I'm contemplating.
We can, we
I
can
think
s-
I can answer most of your questions, but specifically around the engineering around
Let's make
the well.
sure you know all the questions we want
And that's
to
my
be
point.
answered.
I think I'll have him there. If you're gonna be asking questions, obviously, about the well, I think is probably the biggest question now, in regards to the water table and the water draining out of it. So I will check with him, and I can have him present if we need to.
Exactly, so we could schedule it for that time. If it becomes a scheduling issue with your engineer, just let our agent know. We can reschedule it to a time that works out for you.
Chris, I think we need
Yeah.
to, I mean, a couple items that you want to, before the next meeting too, is
Yes.
whether or not you're going to keep the trees, what tree's going to go, if that's going to be part of this plan.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the roof on that deck that you're going to square off and
Mm-hmm.
possibly add the 30 inches to. I think if you're going to catch the water for that and put it somewhere, you need to come up with what the plan's going to be to catch the water under the deck and how you're going to get it to where you're going to bring it to. So I think that'll be, something before the next meeting, so that you're not.
All of that updated on the plans?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and, I guess that's it. That's
Good,
it, Chris.
no, that's good, that's good. Anything else we want to flag to the applicant's attention? All right, good, all right, so then we have a motion then for, we need a motion to continue as well as a motion for a site walk.
So move.
Motion made by Dave,
What time was the sidewalk?
5 o'clock.
What day?
It'd be a Tuesday, the 17th, would be the site walk, a week before the next hearing. Our next hearing be the following Tuesday, May 24th. Okay. So a motion by Dave to that effect, seconded by Bill Vines. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, so you're all set, sir, today. We'll see you later. All right, that takes us through our regulatory hearings for this evening. Thank you all that were in attendance for those hearings. We now move on to our discussion agenda, and we have an item up here on sustainability issues, a standardized approval process for the geothermal installations, and we've got Body Upopan. I might have butchered that one, but we'll, and we also have Byrne Kosicki, and we're looking from the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee, and we're going to talk about some sustainability issues. And thank you, gentlemen, for waiting for us. It's been a long evening, a little longer than typical, but we appreciate your waiting for us.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. So my name is Bernard Kosicki. I'm from 24 Garrison Road, and I'm a member of the newly formed Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee. The reason I'm here tonight is first to introduce this new committee to the Conservation Commission, and second, to try to start a process of finding common ground between the two committees. The Clean Energy Committee was formed by the Select Board in fall in response to the resolution passed at town meeting just about a year ago that Chelmsford would seek to have net zero carbon emissions by 2050. This mirrors the state goal. But this is a very difficult goal. And so the Clean Energy Committee is seeking advice of other committees and looking for areas of common interest and collaboration to help advance the goal. In a previous meeting with the Conservation Commission, some of your members pointed out the importance of trees and other plants in meeting our zero emission goal. So this is one example of a shared interest between the two groups. We'll surely find more in the future. Finally, I am the clean energy point of contact from that committee for dealings with the Conservation Commission. So I hope that the Commission might see fit to identify a point of contact that I can talk with within your group so that our two groups can communicate about possible areas of common interest. Thank you for your time. Available for any questions or comments. And Badre is the chair of the committee, and I think he has a few comments also.
Well, thank you very much, Bernie.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. Badri, the floor is yours.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Badri Upliapan, Chair of the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee, appointed by the Select Board. There are about 9 members appointed at this point. So what I wanted to bring to context for discussion with the Conservation Commission, as Bern pointed out, we want to have the shared goal of reaching net zero. It's a tough journey across the board. It's not just about trees or something. And as you can see, I was making some comments on and off in the previous regulatory hearings, just to give a holistic picture of thought processes that one might have to employ, just looking for things that might, pop up, especially in this 2nd lane, 5th lane area around the Hard Pond. Different homes have different heating requirements or cooling requirements and what might happen. And as I'm making those comments, which are sort of not relevant, maybe the first blush to the Conservation Commission's activities or purview, but we have to give thoughts because this is a time when the homeowner may be looking to do something. There's an opportunity to collaborate with neighbors and bring some about. So those kinds of systems thinking or larger approach, maybe some things that you have to start thinking about. The intent for our committee is to collaborate, bring awareness. If there is education component, there is education both ways, I think. And this is a long-running process, right? We have to go through. One topic that came to mind as on a personal basis, I was experiencing it, but before I went to the personal experience or journey that I had to go through, I also thought about this a little bit in context of and the importance of Conservation Commission's scope is wetlands and geothermals or things around that nature, what happens and what needs to be considered. Amongst the various new technologies that are coming up, and especially mass save and the state has rolled out for electrical supply-based things, is air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps. And air source heat pumps are sort of like your air conditioning units, generally, cheaper and better and stuff, but not as efficient in cold weather or variable. And a certain amount of places can be beneficial if they considered geothermal or ground source heating pumps, basically. You'll notice that any new, and generally ground source heating pump is more expensive and tends to have a better ROI when installed as a part of a new construction because the life of a building is at least 75, 150 years. And these systems can generally, the wells that you dig, 300-foot, 400-foot type of wells sometimes that you build are, pay off when you're amortized over the life of these buildings.
Is it practical for residential or just commercial?
It's practical for residential. There are a lot of homes being built now with this particular type of geothermal for new construction, well-built one. In fact, in my preliminary conversations as getting to know it, a well-built home today, the good standard home has about 3 air refreshes per hour equivalent, volumetrically speaking, and that's considered in the world of construction not the best design, but it's the standard condition. And those kinds of things can generally be met with a very efficient geothermal pump in the range of 35,000 BTUs, 40,000 BTUs for up to 4,000 square foot, right? And that's not generally happening. So that's very, very, efficient building. And there are homes that are called passive houses and stuff, which really are half of air exchange per hour kind of a thing or less, very, very tight, where you have to run a exhaust fan kind of a thing to bring in fresh air and stuff. But anyways, the point here is there is a plethora of issues that are coming up to this and that are adjacent to the way of how Conservation Commission might have been thinking traditionally, and these other factors need to be considered in terms of, as owners come in and think about presenting. And for example, I've reached out to figure out how to get connected with the builders for 913 Acton Road and see if they would consider geothermal as a piece. And also we've reached out to, for example, to the UMass Lowell West builders, Trammell and others to consider putting geothermal up front, right? And rather than the combination for them would be solar and geothermal type of things. And I think the UMass Lowell West property may not have, I mean, it has wetlands in the front of the place, but they may not be necessarily impacted as much. But at least Nine Acton, if they agree to it and think about doing it properly with solar and geothermal, they'd be the hottest property in town to have anybody, because it'll have very low energy or carbon footprint, so to speak. In any case, that was one area that I sort of came out. And so initially when I was talking to Dave about this, and I just thought, okay, maybe you'll just bring it up, is we'll obviously have to work through many, many different items across the board over time. In terms of items, as Bern pointed out, there may be different areas that we could collaborate on. But one thing that as the Mass Save program kicks off and we begin to advertise more of that in our town activities or new buildings, or try to reach for that scope, what can we do to ease the process or standardize the process of documenting, presenting to the committee, and the conditions or standard orders and what needs to happen, so to speak, to make it simple for those who want to adopt this expensive but great technology that can be there and has the lowest impact. What could we do, right, to standardize it, or write a good note how to walk through that system, because it's nobody's tried it, and then each one is a different condition potentially. But if we can encompass a set of guidance that can be written out and done, maybe the approval process is easier, maybe the discussion around it becomes easier, it's less time, whatever we can do to eliminate bottlenecks or confusion, right, in some sense, that will be a great progress that we can do. To give more context to this, town put some money, state gave some grant for a resiliency plan build, and we've contracted with Weston and Sampson, which is establishing a practice on zoning. We're actually, some of us are meeting this Thursday for a kickoff with Weston and Sampson and Planning Board, and we'll look at understanding how Planning Board can begin to take net zero under consideration, which is not feasible right now. Many towns in Boston, Brookline, and others try to say, hey, no more new gas connections, and state AG shut them down. But now Governor Baker is putting together a program for pilot towns to go and explore new installs and new places not to have these things. But that would mean that they would need to go either air source heat pumps or ground source. And I think Marlboro is doing a ground source heat pump challenge, for example. So these things are going to start coming up. Even last Thursday at the Future of Gas DPU hearing, the utility companies, the distribution companies had talked about figuring out to do micro geogrids, as in you put a few wells in a street kind of a thing and hook the whole street up and try to serve that whole street up in some sense. So geothermal is definitely going to be a big push, and it has one of the most impacts depending on the topology and lay of the land consideration. So that was one topic I identified, and if there's a way either this committee forms a smaller study group, or authorizes Dave to come up with the right set of guidelines of what needs to happen and simplifies the process, it goes a long way to take things out of either delay or confusion or anything like that, just having something done properly. And that will be a great template. And obviously things will get refined over the years. So that's the intent on the geothermal side, topic one. But again, I wanted to give context to what Bern said, is we've got to identify different ways, and also to be aware of the multiplicities of impact, right? As I pointed out for the 32 Fifth Lane.
I'm sure you're familiar with the way the electric company does it now, where the investors, and you pay it off over a 20-year period when you have solar power burn onto your house.
Yes.
The solar grid. Is anything like that available with geothermal?
Nothing has yet come out in that particular sense, but those are funding mechanisms to be thought through and stuff like that. It's not yet known, but there are, for solar, there's a lot more incentives and planning coming in Geothermal is just about kickstarting. So I expect in the next 3 to 5 years time frame, innovations will happen. One of the proposals on the future of gas, as most people were, most of those people who gave testimonial into the DPU basically said there just cannot be any more gas. We've got to stop gas. And even though the distribution companies were thinking about so-called biomethane, which is taking animal waste and converting that, or sewer waste into methane, into pipeline, and even clean hydrogen. About 50 speakers on last Thursday's call at DPU, which ran for about 3:30 to 7 p.m. roughly, 40 speakers roughly, all said, shut down gas. There's no more thing, right? So it's got to be electrification of some sort that's going to be the key thing. So, and or geothermal, which has got a very high efficiency. I'm giving you all this thing so that you're a little bit more aware of the context in making these things, because sometimes these are not, it's not within our boundary type of conversation, but being aware of it's good. So these things will happen, and at some point I'm expecting financial markets will pick up, or there will be programs, as you pointed out. Put in your geothermal, it's owned by the company for 20 years, you lease it, and then it becomes paid for, and or it may be that geothermal as a heating service is offered, and National Grid will be standing in front and asking for the variances of what needs to happen for these homes or something like that. But it's important to consider these ancillary questions, which hitherto we've not considered because it's not in purview, but we are living in a time of transition where we want to repay Earth back to our future generations from whom we have borrowed it.
Well, Vaudrey, I think certainly this group of folks here, we've got our mission, conservation minded, we're environmentally focused, we're certainly very sympathetic. I know a number of my colleagues have talked about the value of trees and how we're encouraging, more trees and trying to protect trees and the environment, and being, we like the green initiatives that we hear about in the different construction projects. We're certainly encouraging that type of thing when we see development coming through from our, our key values, what we're trying to protect, the environment and the resources, the water, the air quality. So we're going to be, I think, sympathetic allies to your committee that you gentlemen are on. We also might want to have our agent take a look at some of our, maybe our rules and regulations as far as, adapting for some of the, some of these new technologies that are coming along. And we have a discussion a little bit later as well on kind of a little bit around our legal notices, which actually has some impact on our request for determination, because in the past, the request for determinations were really a fairly simple and not a very expensive way where we could have an overview and grant permits for work that was going to take place. But we're having some impact, which we're going to take up in a few minutes on that aspect of it. So we may have to take a look at our rules and regulations on kind of what can be, what needs to come before this commission for approval, what might be handled by our agent in some situations. So, but I think, we're kind of natural allies here, this whole environmental situation, the green initiatives. So I think we need to continue the dialogue, and certainly probably our agent can kind of work with you folks around kind of some of this and come back. Today was a lot on the agenda tonight.
Yep.
But come back again at a future date. But any comments from the commissioners?
Yeah, I'm a natural supporter of what you say. However, if you read our bylaw, it's quite different from what you're talking about.
Understood.
We get our authority, and our mission comes from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, and particularly their Wetland Protection Act. We don't get any other authority than what is in the Wetland Protection Act. Now, Chris talks about some of our comments on trees. In order for us to enforce that, the town would have to, adopted by town meeting, would have to have a different regulation about trees, not necessarily whether or not the Conservation Commission had the authority to do it is a separate matter.
Right.
So if you look at our preamble, you see the things that we're responsible for. The example you brought up about Fifth Avenue this evening, that really is not within our jurisdiction in terms of you were talking about, I think, what they might use for natural gas or
Yep.
some kind of heat.
Yeah.
We can't legislate that.
Understood.
You would have to rewrite the bylaws and the rules and regulations of the Conservation if you wanted to get us involved in it. So I mean, other than embracing what you want to do, I don't see from a legislative perspective how the two work together. I don't mean they work against each other, don't get me wrong. I just don't see how they work together. And hopefully, you would always have members on this commission that supported the kind of work you were doing.
Didn't we have one on School Street that used geothermal, that, the old, where the waterfall is?
Yeah,
That
well, they
building?
used geothermal, they used a couple of types. In fact, we never even, that was about 15 years ago.
Right, but we were in support of that.
But here again, they needed approval from the Conservation Commission because the area where they wanted to put in, they were taking heat out of the water.
Right.
Right.
What's the lake up there?
That's,
Up on Main Street, right?
Beaver
Up that
Brook.
way.
Was it
Beaver
Brook?
Brook.
There's a lake up there.
No.
It's a mill pond, yeah,
The mill pond.
Is that the name of it?
The
Anyhow,
mill-
anyhow.
Brook
School
or-
Street?
Yeah,
On School Street.
yeah.
Our involvement was, they wanted,
Stony Brook.
the work they wanted to do was within our jurisdiction.
Understood.
But in fact, we never followed up, nobody ever told us whether it worked or not.
Right, right.
Do you know if it worked?
I
You
don't
know,
know.
you know the location we're talking about? by
I
any
know the
chance?
general location, but
office
I wasn't
building.
sure that there was
It
something.
was an office building, the guy put his company in it,
Right on School Street,
right across the street from the old,
railroad.
railroad station.
I guess one of his concerns was his discharge water. The water came out
Yeah,
a
we were.
little bit warmer.
Right. Yeah,
I remember that,
It'd be
I remember that,
interesting to
yeah.
find out whether it worked or not.
But I think that's the only one, I've
Yeah, I
been
think you're
here
right,
for a long
That
time.
might have come up. I know that there is one of the, I was told that one of the storage spaces on Route 129 has a geothermal installed heating, cooling, or air conditioning system. But thanks, Dave, for Dave M. for the guidance there. It might be worth at an appropriate time as we go through the process of zoning or other laws that we can look at. We can figure out working collaboratively both with the appropriate boards and this commission, basically to see what might be additional language that could help you all to consider, and not necessarily to say stop something, because we'll have to obviously resolve it with state law and all those other things that give you authority, but just to give you enough ability to consider and discuss it furthermore as points,
I
that's
mean,
all.
we have gone to,
That's all.
town meeting over the past years.
So,
We've gone in successful, and we've had some changes to bylaws. So we've done that, and we've also had other articles where people have come to us for support. We've gone in and recommended in favor
right.
in front of town meeting, so that's certainly not ruling that out. But to Dave's point, we've obviously, in our
So that doesn't
regulatory
mean we
perspective.
can't change our
Yeah,
bylaws.
yeah.
Well, you can change the regulations without going to town.
Right. But the regulations are much more, they're less global than the bylaw
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, but we could have a hearing and publicize it. But Burr, you got a comment there?
So I guess just one comment, what Dave said. Even though you may not be legislatively allowed to push, say, planting trees on people, I heard you say tonight that you advise it, and that carries a lot of weight from a committee like this. People pay attention to it, and some of the people testifying tonight took it upon themselves to even point out where the trees are on their properties. So
Frankly, we have a tree committee in town, and they should draft a residential tree policy. There is no residential tree policy in this town.
We will take that.
There's a municipal tree policy for trees on town property, but there's no regulation for trees on residents' homes in terms of what can and can't be done.
That's a great point. I know, for example, it cuts both ways, right? So one of the gentlemen said, hey, I'd like to cut a tree, improve my solar facing axis to generate it. So the question is, how do we manage that if cutting one tree helps get a lot more solar power that
offset something, but then can that person then figure out another place to plant and compensate for it or something like that? And we've got to think through those things. Essentially, some trade-offs have to be thought through. And I certainly understand that the topic is rich and needs discussion, and we've got to just come up with set of metrics or principles that will help it, right? But all the inputs is great is to look at the bylaws that give you more power or consideration or aspects. That's good feedback.
Hey, we have open minds, so we're sympathetic to
that's
the
fantastic.
same issues, you know?
Yep, that's fantastic. All we ask is, we'll come and update the commission here as often as possible, and we'll work with Dave, and if there is anything that we can get as ideas, either through our work through select board or through town meeting, we'll be happy to receive input.
Absolutely. I mean, you're always welcome here. Absolutely.
So that's all we wanted to bring that up and get the conversation on. So as set of actions, I think I'll work with Dave, but we'll see what we can write out as a policy or something that we can simplify and set some timelines of what needs to happen through, and we'll figure that process and then
Sounds good.
use that as an achievement for calendar 22.
Absolutely.
Well, and you might want to stick around for the next discussion as well.
Okay,
'cause I think
if you advise, then I'm here.
I think it is relevant.
I think it is.
Okay.
I think the timing's good.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have our next item coming up is the loss of the Eagle Independent for public hearing legal notices and the impact what that has and the collateral consequences upon us. And our agent is going to tell us what that means to us and what it means to potential applicants in the town.
Well, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and you've kind of touched on it already. The Eagle Independent published its last print edition last Friday, the 6th. They are going to a fully online edition right now, but they're no longer going to be publishing legal notices, public hearing legal notices, even in their online edition. So historically, of course, the commission has used the Eagle Independent to publish public hearing legal notices, which is required by both the Wetlands Protection Act regulations and the Town of Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw regulations. So, and they were pretty cheap, as things goes. I think as those things go, is $55, $60 to publish a legal notice advertisement for just once. So that leaves now only the Lowell Sun as the only print edition newspaper in the local area to be able to have public hearing legal notices published, and they charge hundreds of dollars. $250 over $300, and that I think is going to be a problem, particularly.
Take a look at this engineer Martell that wanted to take
Exactly.
3 or 4 trees down on 2 different properties. That homeowner's going to have to write a check for $300.
I would have gotten an argument. At the very least, I would have gotten an argument. There will be people that simply will refuse to do it.
Dave, do you know if this is a similar problem with the appeals board and planning board in Chelmsford?
I think it is. I think it is a similar.
So is it the state or is it the town that requires it to be printed?
DEP requires us to do this.
Yeah, 310 CMR 10.00.
Sounds to me like this is a phone call somebody has to make to town council, and it's because it's not unique to Chelmsford.
Right. Well, I did talk to the circuit rider, the DEP circuit rider with the Northeast District, and she said she's well aware of the problem or the concern that not sure it may require a legislative remedy or I don't think that's true. I think DEP can go ahead and modify the regulations.
What does she propose we do in the short run, like within the next 3 months?
What does she propose? She said basically that's your problem.
Isn't that nice?
So
that's a good state agency's attitude.
Right, I agree.
But to Dave's point, I mean, let's run it by town council, because he's dealing with legal notices all the time. We got our select board representatives still hanging in here tonight with us. I mean, it impacts a lot of citizens. I mean, tonight was typical. I mean, we had like a dozen citizens in with their permit
The
requests.
simplest solution is to allow online newspapers to print the ad. The idea that it has to be a print edition is old-fashioned.
Well, yes, but that actually is kind of a separate issue, because the Eagle Independent told me that wouldn't matter, because they're not
Oh, but maybe, but there are more sources of online papers, perhaps.
Yep.
And the Lowell Sun may not be around much longer anyhow.
True. So, I mean, one possibility would be to add, very minor projects to the list of minor exemptions in the bylaw. There's always this issue, of course, with the state. The Wetlands Protection Act does require filings, but I don't think that there would be a huge issue if, say, for things like we saw tonight, we saw the two filings, the two RDAs for taking down a few trees. I don't think there would be a problem if the commission authorized me to work with the property owners, to approve those projects without a filing. And
David, maybe when we come back for our next meeting, if you can give us, email it out to us beforehand or whatever, but give us that list again of minor activities to refresh our memories of the different things that you as the agent can take care of and not necessarily bring to our attention. But let's get that list in front of us again.
Another example was the shed we saw tonight.
Sheds,
which half of it was outside the buffer zone, and it was very small. Again, I'll think about how to work it, but maybe something like that could be added to the list of minor exemptions as well. For those kind of projects, I just, I'm gonna spend most of my time arguing with people about the cost.
It could be a huge waste of your time.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, to look at it from a strictly selfish standpoint. Yeah.
The idea is to be user-friendly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, for a developer or, that's good a situation, I think they can afford it. They should still have to do it for as long as the requirement lasts. But, for really minor projects, there's no point in just sticking it to people like that.
So I think let's run it by town council, see if he's got any input.
Okay.
You already did the circuit rider, right? It wasn't too helpful, but that's okay. We have our select board representative. It's a citizen concern, and we're trying to look out for our average taxpayers out there. So let's check that. Let's look at the minor activity list again. Let's do some more research. Let's come back to it, and maybe there's some alternatives out there. If we could just do it online, there's got to be other online publishers out there besides the Independent and the Eagle,
Oh, sure.
right?
Gotta be paper.
Every print paper has an online edition now. And then some of them are, so, no question. The Globe had, if the Globe did it, if DEP allowed us to use the Boston Globe, that would,
Yeah, as long as it was cost effective.
Well, I doubt that half of Chelmsford reads a
Well, the
newspaper
regulations
these days.
say.
Well, maybe we should look at the
local
Boston Herald, I guess, there you go.
No, I didn't mean that. I mean, most people get their news from sources other than the newspaper.
I know.
Facebook.
All right, so let's continue this discussion, all right? We won't solve it
What's
tonight,
next?
but, next up, yes. Okay. Status of the grist mill.
It looks beautiful. I drove by it today. I like the work they're doing up in the corner, up in the middle. It looks nice.
Well, I have verified that no certificate of compliance was ever issued.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the Oddfellows.
Yeah, Oddfellows, that's coming up
I
next.
apologize.
Oh, we're doing Oddfellows?
No, you're doing gristmill.
I want to do gristmill.
I was wrong.
Oh, my grist mill, it's beautiful, I know. Anyway, yeah, grist mill.
So what do we do about it?
So what happened, so there's no certificate of compliance?
Right, and I know, Mark, you've mentioned having some concerns. Here, I brought up the special conditions.
Are we talking about grist mill?
Grist mill, yes, yes. So,
Is a problem?
well, I know Mark mentioned some concerns. I'm
Mark?
not sure specifically what they are.
It was about the vegetation,
Rocks.
rocks, trees that have fallen in the brook.
They were gonna clean stuff.
Yeah, yep.
Problem is, I don't think there was a special condition in the order of conditions.
Well,
I
here
think-
here they
Those are the
are.
articles,
Here are the special conditions.
Can you read them off? I can't.
I can't read those either.
The applicant shall notify the agent prior to the commencement of work along the brook for the brook walk. If this work should take place in stages, the agent shall be notified prior to each stage for review. So I don't know if that's been done or not, is the brook walk. I have no idea.
Well, there is a walk that's in
It's
place.
done, so, yeah.
Number 2, snow storage must comply with the current state guidelines, and stockpiling of snow shall not take place within 75 feet of the brook.
All right, so probably compliant.
And 3, salt should not be used as a melting agent
Right.
anywhere on site.
What happened to those stuff? I remember that discussion.
No, Mark had the discussion with the developer.
I remember
Had it
that.
here.
Right here in the hearing, and they said they're
But-
gonna
But
do
I
it.
do think, I think it was a one-off discussion, and I don't think it was in the order of conditions. I think it happened after we had approved the project.
No,
I
not the way I
thought-
remember
I
it.
think it should have been.
It was during the meeting, but
And it was
it
the-
might
it
not have
was-
been put in this.
It was
I
the,
think
it
we
was
asked
the
for it.
principal
I think we asked for
of
it.
the applicant, too. It was not one of his associates.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a discussion, a further discussion with them, follow-up discussion, because I remember that discussion. And
me
it
too.
was, and there were assurances made at the
Right,
public
I
hearing.
remember
So
that.
Right.
maybe we can have follow-up with the grist mill, some
What's
representatives.
the date on that? Kevin?
It was sometime in 2016.
Can we
was
dig-
when the
How
order-
hard is it to dig out the minutes? around
That shouldn't be too difficult. I mean, the
I have
order,
it on my computer.
And see if it references what Mark's talking about.
I remember those
Yeah,
discussions.
I remember those discussions really
And that
intensely.
project went through a number of reiterations during that
Sure
time,
it did.
too. There was like
Yeah, there was
three
quite a
or
bit of
four
discussion about that.
Major
was.
changes while he figured out what he wanted to
let's-
do and what he
I
could
kind of
afford.
self-proclaimed myself as being a liaison, who was gonna be there when that stuff was being
I
done.
remember that.
Right.
So let's
So
get the
were you?
minutes, and let's
I
follow
met with him
up on it.
twice.
You did meet with him.
Yes. He said, I can't do anything now.
Now, yeah, it was now. But it was, the implication was gonna
Okay,
be
so
gonna be
we've
done.
got some leverage on, if we can find some more evidence, we've got some leverage with the COC.
maybe. I did invite representatives to attend tonight to hear this discussion or participate in this discussion, and they were here, but they left. They left after the continuance.
Well, I know they're
for-
interested, there's an interest certainly in the other hearing that we continued without
So-
Oh,
discussion.
but those are residents. That's not the builder.
No,
Here
no,
tonight?
Yes.
That was the association, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, not
Yeah.
the, not the
Association.
builder.
Well, the builder is long out.
I understand, but the agreement was with the builder.
Well, so now it should be with the association. As I say,
They don't have any money, right? That's what we heard.
It's worth a discussion. Yeah, it's-
What
Yeah, they
rights do
said
we
they didn't have
have?
any money.
We're holding on to the certificate of compliance.
We have some leverage.
But we've got, I think we need some evidence that we in fact did have an agreement, even if it
yeah.
was verbal,
Well, let's get the
with
minutes.
the principle of the contract.
I had it with the principal, and I had it with the engineer.
So
Yeah.
we'll pull the minutes, that'll be documentary evidence, and then we have the leverage of the COC, which we would be, much more inclined to grant if what was
trouble-
promised was done.
There was a similar episode across the street with Win Stanley. There was gonna be a 5-year plan, they were gonna take care of the invasives. That went
Yeah, I
for
remember
1
that
year.
too. And
1
that
year,
never
and
happened
that was
either.
it.
And that never happened either. Because I remember that lengthy discussion about how it was 5 years and how that stuff you needed 5 years to stomp that invasive stuff out.
Right.
But I think we have a new agent here with us now, and I think we can exert more oversight on a lot of these projects.
The real problem that we have townwide is we don't have good follow-up because of resources.
Right. Well,
If you
we
look-
never
if
had
you-
an agent like this either.
No, no, but see,
I hope that's a compliment.
That's a compliment.
That's a compliment.
You know, I can tell you're doing a good job, because the builders dislike you.
Oh, really? Is that what you're hearing?
Yes.
Oh.
So keep up
That's
the good
great.
work. Yeah,
That's
keep up the
perfect.
good work, yes, keep up the good work.
and he's a builder.
He associates
Or he
with
was
builders.
a builder.
He was, and he still associates with
But
builders.
I could not guess how many projects in this town required annual plans back to us in February of each year, telling us what they had done to comply with the order of conditions. That's where you see, other than the Win Stanley kind of thing.
Yeah.
If they said it in the report that it was done,
Yeah.
and we said, we saw it wasn't done, we'd have to have a serious discussion.
Yeah.
If they didn't put it in the report, and it should have been in the report, we'd have another
We had,
discussion.
like, Billy, you were following up on Williamsburg on that big project up there.
Right.
You took it upon yourself to follow up on that.
So anyhow,
So let's carry this one forward. You know, we'll get the minutes, and then I think we have a follow-up discussion.
I thought it was a great idea. They wanted to ship the knotweed to the Zoo New England so the giraffes could eat it. Apparently giraffes like knotweed.
Well,
I told them they could bring the giraffe out to Chelmsford.
You know, I like that idea. Good. I like that idea, Dave.
I don't think it grows tall enough for them.
Probably doesn't.
All right, so on that note, let's move along.
So I'll check the minutes. I'll see what I
Yeah.
can find in the minutes.
If it's not on the minutes, we've got to, I don't know what we can do.
But what should I be looking for? There was an agreement between the commission and the developer to.
Discussion between the,
Or discussion, yeah.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Just any reference.
about the stream and
Okay.
moving rocks and cleaning up the
There were
trees
tires
that
and
were
stuff down there. There was a lot of bad
There was a
stuff.
lot
And
of-
they were supposed to clean that up for us.
Okay.
Mark, as I recall,
Right, Bill?
it was around the time of the order of conditions or a subsequent discussion, because the principal of the grist mill was starting to show up again for the other project across the street. So, I mean, he was around. So, but I can't be any more specific.
That was the second meeting, you are correct.
Right.
But I can't be any more specific than that.
Okay. Well, and I'm happy to talk to the developer as well, if you authorize me to do that.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Again, we, you know, it's all about working together for the greater good. All right, good. So that we get that one. And then the Oddfellows, and this segues into Oddfellows as well, too.
So that's proceeding
And
apace.
as Dave said, that thing's looking good, right, Dave?
That's, the front of that
It's
building looks
looking
really
good.
nice.
Well,
I have a piece of information for you, though, Dave.
okay.
We heard it at the 9 Acton Road sidewalk. Apparently, there is an argument brewing between Sandander people and the people who own the Fisk House over how many parking spots go to each lot.
Wow.
Now, this gets to the point that Mark had raised earlier. We approved the project. But now the project is different.
Yes.
And the argument over parking is a good example of it. Seems to me as if the grist mills never got the right order of conditions from us.
The grist mill or?
I keep saying.
Oddfellows.
Oddfellows. It's the
So,
same,
well-
it's the same developer, that's why I keep saying.
Well, I did,
I knew what you meant.
I did pull out the plans. They're sitting over there. I haven't had a chance to, put them online yet, but, I mean, there was clearly a lot of work in the commission's jurisdiction, in the riverfront area.
Oh,
A
yeah.
lot of that site is riverfront area. It's not completely clear from the plans what additional work in the commission's jurisdiction is proposed with that building not being done, but it still looks to me like it's a significant amount. There's grading, there's the patio that someone
Grading,
mentioned.
patio, and parking, right?
Yep. So, I mean, at some point, if things are done properly, a request for a certificate of compliance is going to have to.
That'd
is
be
going to
interesting, since it's now 4 separate lots. Who asked for the certificate of compliance?
Well, no one's asked for it yet.
No, but who would? Would 4 people ask for one? Or would one person, being the original applicant?
Well, that's a good question. That's why I put in all of my orders of conditions, I mean, it's water over the dam for this one, but in all of my orders of conditions, I put a couple of conditions in there that says that the order of conditions shall apply to any successor in interest or successor in ownership in all or any portion of the
Exactly. I
property.
think a good real estate attorney would be requiring that certificate.
Well, but
The
a lot
whole
of these
thing's
properties
changed.
seem to be getting sold, without it.
This is what happens when we finally hire a conservation agent with some experience. None of our agents prior to David had enough experience to think about why that should be in an order of conditions,
But I like it, yeah.
because they were learning the job on the job.
Right.
Well, so, as far as the work on the building goes, I've been checking on it regularly. I think they're doing a good job. Nothing's ending up in the wetlands. They're controlling erosion.
Yeah,
Excellent, good. Well, let's keep an eye on it, because it's highly visible. It's one we care a lot about, and we get that brook right next to it, and we don't want anything to mess up. All right, good. All right, great. Land management, Warren Poll.
So, I posted a news flash on the town website today. I don't know if people have had it.
Status?
What's that?
I said with the status.
Yes, did you read it?
Yeah,
Dave?
very good.
All right, good. I'm glad you-
I
good.
thought he was having an issue. That expression was not good.
Other than we can't get the parking lot built, everything's going along fine.
Well, I think we're slowly but surely. I met last week with someone from Arbor East who's going to be taking down like 6 or 7 trees very soon. And then after that is done, the erosion control is going to be installed by the company that does it. It's already been marked out. Then, once that is done, the project is all ready to get started. I can't tell you at this point, exactly when or how long after all the preliminaries are done, when that work will start. I'll just try and press DPW as best I can.
The granite sign, is that still gonna be
We
put there?
Yeah, but we decided we won't, I think the lead time was like 5 weeks.
Right.
We decided not to order it until they're in the ground in the parking lot.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
The kiosk has been ordered.
Yeah, the kiosk has been ordered.
Good.
Slowly but surely, incrementally, we're making progress. I do have to say Scott's doing a really good job on surveying there's an easement that's the town is going to convey to a couple of the neighbors. And,
Yes.
And one of the neighbors in particular, the ones living on Parker Road, have been particularly concerned about that easement. So Scott is actually surveying out the boundary for the easement and doing a meets and bounds description.
Excellent.
Which will actually go into the easement. So he's doing a good job.
Good.
And absent any organizational changes at DPW, Scott Ludwig is our point person to get
That's
this
great.
done.
That's great. Hopefully no changes,
I would say that Carl and I and Dave finished what we consider to be the final draft of the CR, which Carl will deliver to the land trust people. And I don't think there are any significant differences of opinion now.
No showstoppers.
No showstoppers, and it's in a new format that the state has generated, which they haven't seen, so they may need to spend a little time to understand the new format. The next step, according to our town council, is we would deliver an agreed-to draft to the state for their comments. There are a couple of attachments that still have to be prepared, maps and survey and an inventory of the flora and fauna of the site. So we're getting there on that.
Oh, good. Oh, so it sounds like progress then. Slow and steady, that's good.
Has anybody seen, up in Vinyl Square, Watton Street, the public gardens up there? They're doing a beautiful job up there.
Really?
Clearing it out, they cleaned up near the water, the little wetland area, and they
where is
expanded the field up
Watton
on Vinyl
Street,
Square.
So you go head off to the softball fields or the soccer fields, kind of back
Yes.
there? Yeah.
Where you go, you know where it is, Dave? At the light,
so now,
Vinyl
yeah.
Square, you
That's
go
where,
down.
that's where one of our 2 community gardens is,
Oh, okay.
Off Watton Street?
off
Yeah.
Watton Street.
It's, It's beautiful what they're doing
Yep.
down there.
I'll
They've
have to
expanded
get
it.
out there and
They've
take a
put-
look.
Oh, yeah, wait till you see it. It's a whole different look.
Good,
Yeah.
good, all right.
Yeah, they have tractors, they had a tractor up there, the
Really?
guys were doing all kinds of work. Well, looks good.
Good. All right, well, good. Thanks for the updates, then. Minutes, we have the March 15th minutes in front of us. They look good. There's, at least a printed copy I had Mr. McLaughlin's name abbreviated of all things, but that was just the copy I had. The official version has Dave's name spelled out fully. Other than that, I didn't have any problems with it. So we just need a motion to
Motion to
approve.
approve the minutes of
March
March
15th, the Ides of March. Made by Mr. McLaughlin. Beware the Ides of March. So it came and went, so nothing really bad happened, so that's good. That's good.
Second.
Seconded by Bill Vines. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None unanimous. All right, great. Motion to adjourn.
No, I want to stay.
Mark had the motion to adjourn, and it was seconded by John. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Madam Select Person.
Hey, Dave, is